Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to a brand new week of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you tuning in to see how long my beard is today. Thank you for joining us. Stephen Bassett from Paradigm Research Group will be with us momentarily. Dirty Filth has a new cartoon coming out. And all of you are here as well, including Laura Lobbs in the gold medal position, Tim Mothman in his goatee with a silver, and we have Race Fan in the bronze medal tonight. Hi, Nikki in Seattle, Robert Lamoth, Roy Boy, Little Timmy Senor, our attorney at large, Michael Morris. How y'all doing? Samantha Hazelwood Gray, Kurt M, Deer Slayer, Brown Dwarf, JSCO, Javier, Kevin, Susie B. How y'all doing? Neurostream, good to see you. Paisley Town is here. Paisley will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Moving on, we have number 21 in your program, starting at left wing, Lars Jansson from Stockholm, Sweden. Nice to see you, Lars. Okay, continuing on with our roll call here, we have Vash the Impaler, our favorite Marine, Black Dragon. Thank you for your service. Anna, how you doing? Good to see you again. Human Carl, another great veteran of the United States Air Force. Thank you for your service, Human Carl. We very much appreciate it. D. Cohen, Les Paul Holland, Paramarv, Sandra Kincaid, Richard Elmore, James Horn, welcome to SOR tonight. Jessica S. See how we are living. Skip to Malou, how are you all? Crystal J, Paula Foss, how are you? Nick Adkins, Thomas Rock, thank you for coming on in. Hello, Marty Burback and Dogface Simon. Millennium, my man, good to see you. Chrono Trigger, good to have you back. Chrono Trigger will be signing autographs after the show as well. Light up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Richard Elmore, Mama Susan, Lee the Bee, how y'all doing? Susan Alloway, good to see you. Hello, Rose Brooks. And who else do we have here? Jenny White Bear, we love you. Little Cam over on Twitch, good to see you. Pixie Lara, how's the purple hair? Give me an update if you don't mind. Scrolling on down, we have Aaron Stone. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Rexabillion. And who else do we have? Iriam, Australia. Welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us. Rono nice to have you here. Pam Harris, thanks for coming on in. And let's see, who else do we have? Jetty Girl, good to see you again. Ross Lambda, good to have you back. Tommy Boston, welcome to SOR Chat. Super Crazy, nice to see you. And Guy Calgary, thanks for coming on in. Okay, Gizmo, Random Guy. And who else do we have here? Welsh Hammer, good to see you. Chassis Moore, Human Carl again. We love our Human Carl around here. We love Human Carl. Yes, we do. Okay, moving on here. Griff, thanks for joining us. And Badass Billy Gunn, good to see you. All right, we got just a little bit of time here. Latro, good to see you back. Let's start the radio side of things here. So that way we can let Bill WD40 into the chat room to lube us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. Yes, you do. All right, we got 20 seconds left before Or we got about 50 seconds. Reminder to all of you that the super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. You could join the SOR Space Travelers Club. The link is in the description below on YouTube. And you could go to our website, spacedoutradio.com. You could get yourself some swag. We do not have ugly swag, people. We have clothes that you actually want to wear. Yeah, nothing ugly there. And of course, what else can I tell you? Don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell. And thank you, Louie, for kicking off the super chat tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support. And let's see here. I think we're pretty much caught up. So let's do this thing. Horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bubblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a power show of info tonight. Steve Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group will be here momentarily to break down the latest in the UFO disclosure movement. Then in hour number 3, Steve Stockton has a great story from Among the Missing. Following that up, we have Tim Cedar coming in for the UFO report. All right. The man, the myth, and the man who is behind the legendary lobbying of UFOs in Washington, D.C., Stephen Bassett, is the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group, which he founded in 1996 to end a government-imposed embargo on the truth behind ET-related phenomena. He has spoken to audiences around the world about the implications of disclosure, the formal confirmation by heads of state of an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. He's been on more than 1,500 radio and television shows all over the world, major media, podcasts, YouTube channels, radio shows like this, and he is one of the most trusted voices when it comes to the disclosure movement. Steve Bassett, it is always a pleasure to have you here on Spaced Out Radio. And man, is there a lot to catch up on? How you been doing, first of all?
Trying to keep sane. I knew what was coming long ago, and I knew it was going to be crazy. It was going to be a torrent of things happening all at once, and it was going to be impossible to keep up. In the early days, it was very easy to keep up. Things would happen once in a while, maybe get a little conference together, or maybe turn up an article here, but not now. Now it's just rushing forward, and I'm doing everything I can to try to keep up, but it is tough. It is not easy. So it's a good thing, but it's stressful.
Steve, you've been doing this for 30 years.
26.
Or 26, close enough. 26. And we are probably at the closest we have ever been to a disclosure or a confirmation type movement by the U.S. government and governments around the world. There seems to be sticking points all over, which we'll get to later on in the show. But is this a good thing? Is it a good thing for humanity? Is it a good thing for the economy? Is it a good thing for the future of this planet to know that we are not alone in the universe?
Let's just say that historians will be happy to tell us that one day, if they live long enough, or if they come back from the future and tell us. When it comes to things of this magnitude, certainty about how it'll all work out. When they invented the combustion engine and suddenly we started seeing those little things with wheels rolling around, a lot of people were saying this is not going to end well, right? The horse and buggy industry is going to collapse, and these things go too fast. They're going to kill each other and whatever. And of course, it didn't matter. There was nothing going to stop the combustion engine and the rise of the car. But there was some truth back then. Why? Because all those cars generated massive amounts of exhaust and polluted the city skies and gave people cancer. Not to mention all the people that flew through windshields because it took them, I don't know how many decades before they could put a seatbelt in them. No, the way the world works is you move forward and you try to do it in a way that fits your moral universe. Not everybody has the same moral universe, but history is a giant river heading in one direction, and we're swimming in it or boating in it. And we can kind of maneuver a little bit, right? But the idea that we can direct it, not a chance. And so it doesn't really matter, ultimately, whether this is going to work out or not. It's going to happen, period. And it's our responsibility, if we care, to see if we can turn or at least maneuver on this historical time with what is happening and make it be beneficial, positive, constructive, not destructive, as we view the world. That's the best we can do, but that's plenty, and it's fun, and I welcome people to join in, and let's see how it turns out.
What do you see the biggest benefit to any sort of disclosure movement? Where do you see this? Because I don't see it with rose-colored glasses on. I see a military-industrial complex that will try and rule the roost. I worry about the economy, how it's going to affect things. I worry about people. I mean, we got a big chunk of this planet that still parties like it's 1499. Okay, and we have other people who, due to religious beliefs, believe that anything that comes from the sky or is different is going to be evil and demonic. I don't have a fruitful outlook of, and I agree with you. It's going to happen no matter what. I do agree with that, but I'm not as convinced that humanity is ready for such a paradigm shift.
Was humanity ready for relativity, quantum mechanics, the nuclear bombs, airplanes? No, maybe not. Some were, some weren't. Doesn't matter. We are moving forward in time, and you simply can't stop this river of history simply because you need to take a break. In other words, I need to stop the river from flowing here. Going to go to the shore, going to lie down for a while, have a soda, take a drink, whatever, rest, get some sun, and I'll ask the river, start again, and I'll get back in. That's not the way it's going to work. But you've raised an important point that I want to talk about. And I knew this would happen, and it is a serious problem. I say it's a serious problem. It's an expected and workable problem. And to sum it up this way, the United States government is a nation among 200 roughly, and it's done a lot of good things, as most of the other nations of this world. It's also done some really bad things, and like all the nations of this world, the people are encouraged to remember the good things and just forget about the bad things. Well, some people can do that, but a lot can't. And a lot of them that can't forget are activists. Activists, one of their main jobs is preventing people from forgetting about some awful thing the government did, or try to head off some awful thing the government's about to do. And generally, they're a pain in the butt. They cause a lot of trouble, good trouble, as John Lewis used to say. Nobody likes them. And after everything is over, even if everything goes well, they want us to all go away. Leave us alone. I get it. Now, with respect to the U.S., it is a little complicated by the fact that the U.S. views itself with extremely high moral ground. And the nature of its founding and the Constitution is certainly exceptional in a lot of ways. And we have created a very strong democracy, and we've managed to maintain it for 250 years roughly, which is not bad because democracies generally don't last very long. They don't have a good lifespan. Kingdoms, monarchies, dictatorships, particularly family dictatorships from one to another, they last a long time. Democracies, not good. And so we've always been in a somewhat challenging world when it comes to our democracy. And we've done well, but we've also abused the hell out of it. So what's happened since World War II, where the U.S. probably reached its absolute peak of gravitas, prestige, at least amongst all of our allies, and maybe even some Russians and Chinese, it was an extraordinary accomplishment. We were a major factor in defeating a pretty nasty Axis power, a set of Axis powers. And we created some amazing technology to end that war. Okay. And everybody applauded. Fantastic. Thank you, America. We were rocking. Business was coming back, was all good. But then things started to go south. And what's happened since then is that, unfortunately, enough dysfunction has taken place to undermine the confidence and the trust in the U.S. democracy, to really threaten its fundamental existence almost. At the same time, the world was also getting into deep trouble as well. And people are really tired. They're frustrated and they're tired. Unless you're older than 77, you have lived every single moment of your life during a Cold War and nuclear arms race, every single second. And during that time, there have been dozens and dozens and dozens of wars, just not a nuclear war. Huge numbers of people have been slaughtered. Okay? All kinds of terrible things happening. And as the century moved on, the ability for us to know all about that became better every year. In other words, you couldn't just stay at home and just try to shut the world out and do your thing and not get upset. No. All the tech and the communications brought the world to you. And so we got to experience it every decade, even more visually, more intensely. The world's a mess, and now we carry that mess around inside our head, rent-free. We're incredibly stressed out, particularly in the advanced countries, the more developed countries. Huge numbers of people are on drugs just to keep calm. Also drugs to deal with illnesses that are being created by stress, which they have to take drugs to deal with. And we are abusing drugs, what I mean by, quote, recreational drugs, profoundly. I mean, the addiction is really quite extraordinary. I'm not casting shade here. I think a lot of people are getting addicted to drugs because what else can they do? They've got to somehow escape all these things that are happening, pressing forward. It's not easy. Suicide rates are up, opiate use is up, and on and on and on. And we are just unbelievably stressed. There's an article in the, I think, New York Times or Washington Post just yesterday, which I love. I just wanted to see it. Let me tell you, it was an article basically about how we are all so stressed and how stressed is killing us from the inside out. Thank you, Washington Post. I really appreciate that. So where am I going with this? Where I'm going is that the distrust in the United States government, sadly, since the end of World War II, has just collapsed. It has been fed by huge, colossal blunders, lies, wars, misrepresentations, and massive abuse of secrecy. And that has fed conspiracy thinking, which is part of human nature. Right? We are a cautious species. We want to survive. We tend to create conspiracies as a defensive mechanism, meaning if I can figure this out and I know it's a threat, then I can maybe avoid it. And so I'm constantly looking for potential threats. I mean, that's our nature, constantly looking for potential threats. And so in this complex society, the ability to come up with conspiratorial explanations for everything and anything has been manifest in full. And it has the ability now to spread like wildfire. Some conspiracy theory can start, I don't know, in San Fernando Valley in somebody's basement, get out on Twitter, get picked up on TikTok, travel to a few other countries, and the next thing you know, it's a major meme, and it's being written up in serious papers. This is the world we're in now. And so I knew that when we come to the end of the truth embargo, as we near finally getting this thing done, which was going to be a very dramatic thing, potent, complex, profound in a lot of ways, that people were not going to handle it well in the sense that they weren't going to believe it. They were going to distrust it. They were going to criticize it. They were going to look for any aspect of it that would reconfirm how evil the government is, right? So as far as they're concerned, whoever's running AARO was probably the same people that had Kennedy killed. And I won't repeat more of these. I can give you 1,000 examples. It doesn't matter. The point is that they weren't going to embrace it. They were going to fight it, yell and scream about it, and it would make it that much more difficult. However, I'm not blaming the people. I am blaming the government. You see, if the government had not done what it had done, we wouldn't have this problem at all. If the good President Truman, after he learned what had developed at Roswell, and knowing that a press release was already out, and not sure how fast that would go, far that would go. I mean, it could have literally blown up sky high. Didn't know for sure. He made the decision, well, let's take a break. And so he calls Rainey and says, look, get Marcel over there, bring some wreckage, look at that, stow that in the back, get that tin foil out of my freezer, the one with the fish, bring it out. We'll say it's a weather balloon, and then we'll see what's going to happen next. Not unreasonable. This whole thing caught him by surprise. I get it. And they thought about it, and they made the decision, let's just pretend this didn't happen. Let's just chill, right? It's okay. We got a lot of things to do. We just won the war, got to build the economy. Let's just kind of let this go. And it kind of worked. 48, 49, 50, 51, there were sightings. There wasn't a lot of media back then. It got sort of reported. And historically, we've gone back and probably learned more about some sightings then that were known then. And things were kind of okay until 1952. When the ETs, intentionally, for reasons I think I understand, decided, you put out a press release in 47. You got a couple of our guys. You got one of our craft, right? And you're trying to act like what's here? What's going on? Nothing going on here. And so, okay, here's a message. So they flew over the Capitol, Washington D.C., for about 8, 9 days, a 2 weekend span. Scared the hell out of everybody, particularly the Congress, the DOD, the Air Force, which could do absolutely nothing about it. And so, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, that was another opportunity. They could have said, look, we can't stop these things. They can go wherever they want. People are seeing them. Pretty soon they're going to start photographing them. Let's just get this over with. Let's just let the people know what's happened, what we have. We're not alone in the universe. We beat the Nazis. We won World War II. We can handle this. They could have done that, but that's not what they did. They put together the Robertson panel, all CIA, give us a report, and that report was, and very notably was, the phenomena does not appear to be a threat, which is the case, right? It is basically not a threat in the way that matters. But the public interest, which is growing like crazy, is a threat. And so what we need to do is to just tamp that down, shut that off, get the public out of this, whatever it's going to take, right? I didn't know fully what they were going to have to do, and they didn't know what they were going to be up against. But this was, again, 1953. There were like 3 networks in black and white, ABC, NBC, CBS, 15 minutes of news a night. Nobody had a cell phone, and it was okay. And so they decided, let's just go that way. They could have disclosed in 53. They could have disclosed in 58. They didn't. What they chose to do was embark on a truth embargo that goes down through history in direct parallel with the nuclear arms race, right? Which obviously upset a lot of people and created a mutual assured destruction umbrella under which you couldn't have a nuclear war, but you could have all the proxy wars you wanted, and hundreds of millions of people killed. So that was the government's decision, right or wrong. And so I hold them responsible. So what am I trying to get at? Look, we're winning. The truth embargo is ending. So many people inside government now know that the ETs are here and are willing to even engage it. It's simply impossible to turn around and go backwards. And they are doing pretty much all the right things. And if you just push aside all your potential conspiratorial interpretations and your anger and frustration and everything the government's done to make you mad, and there's plenty of things, if you can just kind of shut that out and view it just for what it is, it's possible to see that we're winning. But a lot of people are not able to do that yet, and I respect that. Okay, my job is to sort of present what I think is the proper interpretation, so people could more easily go, okay, I get it, I'm with it. And instead of constantly attacking every little thing they can find, focus on the bigger picture and start telling the people that are trying to do this, we thank you, appreciate it, keep it up, it's good, okay, we like that. That's my job. One podcast at a time, Dave. So that's first thing I wanted to tell you today. All those things that you just mentioned, your frustrations, your concerns, your unable to accept or believe, dismissing, I get that. I understand it. But I'm suggesting that if you could just shut that out and pay attention for a little bit, I can make the case, well, hey, you should be celebrating, man, because we're about to get what we've been seeking since 1947 in one way or another, and that is the confirmation of the extraterrestrial presence.
Now, Steve, I agree with you on that point. As we got about 2 minutes to go here before we go to break here at the bottom of the hour on Spaced Out Radio with Stephen Bassett. I do agree with you for the most part on that, but it's the implications of this UFO/UAP narrative that has all of a sudden been in full control by the U.S. government. Now, one thing that you did mention that I thought very, very particular is you mentioned that it's not a threat. And yet the threat narrative continues in Washington, D.C. over this subject.
And there's a reason for that. Okay? There's
a
reason
narrative
for that.
Brings money.
No. The reason is that in order to end the truth embargo, they're having to go through a fairly elaborate process in order to do it in a way that they view as constructive. And I happen to agree with them. Not only constructive, but also less disruptive. And as it happens, also make the government look a little better, as I've talked about many times. In other words, hey, if we're going to do this, let's don't, make us look any worse than we already are, right? So they're trying to effectuate something that's very difficult. And as a result, and it's also been delayed. What they've been trying to do should have been done long ago. It could have happened much quicker. Unfortunately, we entered an era of interesting times, and we all know what that means. So that has stretched it out. And by stretching it out, it has really made it harder for them, because a lot of the things they're doing should have just moved on into the next level, the next stage, and get to disclosure. But instead, they're kind of stuck. And that makes them a sitting target. And so Arrow is an example. Arrow is just sitting there, and it's just an absolute target. And people just, it's not even fair. I mean, it's just sitting there, and they're just shooting it every day. I get that, but they don't understand what Arrow's about. And so,
Steve, hold that
this
thought.
This is what we need to talk about. Yeah.
We're going to talk about that, the way the movement is going. Stephen Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group, one of the smartest men when it comes to disclosure. Doesn't matter how it happens, as long as it happens, according to Steve. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio. All right, my boss, we got 5 minutes here. 5 minutes, and thank you for everybody tuning in. If this is your first time tuning into Spaced Out Radio, Thank you so much. Do us a favor, hit subscribe, ring that bell. We're here 7 days a week. Also, just so you know, if this is your first time here, we are a hybrid between a live radio show, a live YouTube show, as well as a live podcast, which is why we have to take commercial breaks for our radio side. But the beautiful part about it is if you're listening on the podcast or on YouTube or Twitch, you get behind the scenes of what we do here. So that's why it's a little bit different if it's your first time listening in. So don't be like, what the hell are these commercial breaks for if I can still see these people? And we got Dirty Filth down here drawing another great cartoon. We appreciate you doing that, Dirty. Trying to find you here. Where the hell is the old screens? It's got changed all up here.
He's lost in the ether somewhere, Dave.
Tell me about it. Tell me about no, that ain't it. Well, Steve looks good on that one.
Maybe the cats have gotten into it.
I don't know. What about that one? That's nobody now. Holy cow. Playing around here. Trying to figure this thing out.
You know, Dave, the leading graphics for most podcasts these days are now superior to almost any television show prior to 1965.
Right?
It just get better and better. Right? The quality stuff. Because hey, we're all producers and editors now, right? I mean, you know, I can't handle DaVinci 16. I tried to learn it, nearly had DaVinci Resolve, rather. I almost had a nervous breakdown. But there's all kinds of other easier to use software. Everybody can edit. Everyone can put in graphics and whatever and 3D stuff. It's amazing. I don't know where all that's going, but what the hell?
I almost had that same heart attack with OBS and Google and Zoom. Tell you, StreamYard has been an absolute blessing for me, man.
So you're a StreamYard over Zoom guy.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
StreamYard is so literally is about, I'm going to say 500 times easier to put together than Zoom.
That's a big number.
And cheaper.
Metric or Imperial?
Both.
Well, I have Zoom. I have it. And I think what I need to do is I need to download the StreamYard app and learn how to use that as well. I have to do both because they're always coming in, but I need to start doing my own broadcast. That's inevitable. And I say, my own broadcast, not necessarily a podcast regular thing because I cannot be regular. I'm very irregular. But when I want to do something, I can broadcast it.
Yeah, I would highly recommend StreamYard. It's much easier.
Okay.
Much easier. And, the fact that you can use it on cell phone, you can use it on regular computer and everything. It does the job for what I need it to do. Plus, the other thing that I like about it is its distribution factor. You can send the signal to so many different locations at the exact same time.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting.
So, I mean, if you have a YouTube channel or Twitch channel or Rumble or Twitter, or like right now, I broadcast off of 5: Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and X. Oh, there he is. Paul Hynek is watching. We got to be on our best behavior now, Steve.
No kidding. Paul's on the road. I forget what city he's in. He's actually taking time out to listen to me. Oh, thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
He might be
Paul
here
and
for
I have got some
cartoons.
things cooking that are going to be pretty cool. You can hear about them soon. A lot of things coming, actually.
Paul never has a hair out of place on his head. His hair is always looking perfect. Always.
Yeah. I, on the other hand, do not have a hair that is actually in place. Every single one of them is out of place.
I can, Steve, I got some here if you need.
Yeah, I know. What I do have, though, is simply not in place.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, I have not been in place pretty much since birth. I've never felt I was in place. I've always felt, why am I here? What is going on? And then because I was a Navy kid, Navy brat, every time I thought I was maybe figuring it out, we moved. And I'd start all over again. So I'm weird. It's weirded me out pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. Paisley, I did get my hair cut. I got the sides and the back done. I'm growing out my top again. Not as long as I did before, but I'm growing it out with my beard. Big thank you to Louie, Pam H., and Simon for the super chats. Here we go, everybody.
Bada bing. Bada bam.
Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you here with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you listening to the Mighty SOR. If you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on our Space Travelers Club on Patreon. Here we go, second half hour from the Paradigm Research Group. Stephen Bassett, disclosure tonight is what we are talking about, moving the chains forward, to use a football term. Steve, thank you for joining us.
Yes. Okay. Another analogy. You know I love them. Those Olympic events, the 800, the 1600, whatever the hell dash. You go around the track about 4 or 5 times. You can tell I'm not a track guy. But in the last lap, as you get around to the last lap, they fire off a gun, signaling last lap. Okay. All right. So let's look at the disclosure thing this way. The gun went off on the last lap of the truth embargo in 2017, December, with the New York Times articles. What led up to that was important, and no question about it. And some of that is known. We know a lot about it, but not everything. But ultimately, some major stories were delivered to the Times. It was written up by Leslie Kean, Ralph Blumenthal, and Helene Cooper. Put on the front page of 2 consecutive print editions, whatever those are, but it all went up on the internet, including some gun camera footage, first time ever released formally by any government, and this was released by our DOD, which definitely caught people's attention, and those clips have been seen several billion times since then. When that article hit the New York Times, the gun went off on the last lap, and it was just a question of how long it was going to take to make that lap, cross the finish line, and have disclosure. So with that in mind, I invite people to just shut out of their mind all of their, conspiracy thinking and explanations that they think they've got, and who they like and who they don't like, and how much they hate the U.S. government or love it. It doesn't matter. Just put all that aside, and I'm just going to paint the picture of what happened so that hopefully you can get a sense that, wait a minute, yeah, that makes sense. That's what's going down. Okay, so the gun goes off, which means that the idea of ending this truth embargo is now in play. There's no question about it. There's clearly quite a few people in government who have made that decision. 10 people came out on their own in a public setting in an organization called To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science and so forth, and then started speaking on podcasts and what have you, and got the ball rolling on the public side, but also behind the scenes, meaning meetings, briefings, getting together, talking, all that kind of good stuff that happens in order to govern. The leader of the behind the scenes stuff, as far as I could tell, was Christopher Mellon. He had the background for it. He was perfect for the job. And so the gun goes off. It's 2017. And then a whole bunch of things started happening. And all of these things were being done in order to create the basis to disclose, to build the structure so that disclosure could take place. And the best analogy I have for that, it's not great, but it's all right, it's not too bad, is every 4 years, we have to swear in a new president. Don't we enjoy that? And in order to do that in the right way, it needs to be public and transparent and fairly official and kind of nicely done. They go to a lot of trouble to build a huge scaffolding on the west side of the White House. Massive, huge, just fills up the whole area. And once they get it all done, everybody comes, they sit, they have a bunch of pageantry and there's flags and things. And then the president comes up on the platform with the Supreme Court justice, got the Bible, puts his hand on it or her hand on it one day, and takes the oath and becomes president. And then when they get done, they take the scaffolding down. But that scaffolding is important. That whole ceremony is important. If you don't do that, if you just have them take the oath in the cafeteria under, in the basement of the White House, and then just wave, out the window later that day, people are not going to like that. It's going to be destructive. It's not going to be a confidence builder. It's got to be done right. There's a lot of things in running a massive country and maintaining the proper relationship between the government and the people that have to be done right. And that includes disclosure, particularly when disclosure is essentially the formal acknowledgement that we've been lying through our teeth for 75 years, 77 years. Oh, have we lied? Big time, right? That makes it even tougher. And so what they had to do was to build the structure and create the basis for disclosure to take place is what we want. And as you know, I've gone to great length to very clearly define it. Capital D, confirmation from the president. That's it. Nothing else. You want to call it something else, that's your business. It's not, some lieutenant colonel drinking too much and screaming out, there's ETs here at a cocktail party. That's not disclosure. It has to be from the president for a whole host of reasons. Most people understand this. It's not that complicated. And so it's all about creating the basis for that and doing it in a way that is, in fact, constructive, appropriate, not just for the people, but for the institutions of government and our military and so forth. In other words, you could do disclosure in a way that trashes everybody, right? Everybody gets screwed. Everybody's thrown under the bus. It's a massacre. And then you end up with disclosure. You go, well, we've got disclosure now, but boy, things a mess here. No. You want to do it in a way that is constructive, not disruptive, that is that serves the people, it's transparent, and hopefully improves the ability of people, once they get the truth, to be generous with their government over the fact that they've been lying for so long. All right? That is what they are trying to do. And they're doing exactly what I expected them to do. And what is that? Well, first of all, the issue comes alive. The New York Times did that. It was already quite alive, but in the age of podcast and social media and so forth, it doesn't take much for things to get really going. And so it's moving forward. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, meetings. Usually always starts with meetings. People go up on the Hill, they talk privately to members of Congress and say, here's what's going on. I want you to kind of know about it. Bring some witnesses up. Some we know, some we don't. Would you like to talk to this airline pilot? This Navy pilot, this ship commander, whatever. And they get private briefings about things that we'll eventually learn about much later. And these briefings are important because one of the most essential things for this to be done right is they have to have legislation. In other words, the Congress has got to be involved. This will be one of the biggest events in history. It's going to affect every living person on the planet, including everybody in the United States and institutions and so forth. And so the idea you're going to do it and then, we'll figure out later. No, you have to start creating a legislative infrastructure underneath what is coming. And the first thing you do is brief the Congress privately. And when enough of them have been briefed, accompanied with other developments in the public sector, that's always happening, and they've been speeding up. At some point, Congress is going to decide, okay, it's time for us to finally step into this. When Stephen Schiff, congressman from New Mexico, tried to just get some records from the GAO about Roswell, and they basically said, oh, no, they're over at the archives. And the archives said, no, the Navy has them. And the Navy said, we lost them. I think in one point they were told a bunch of them were burned up in a fire. He got really angry, and he went on I think, a couple of major shows complaining about the fact that they were giving him the runaround, and nothing came from it. Right? That's not engaging the issue legislatively. All right. And there have been a few other of those vignettes, but that's not the same thing. And so, not surprisingly, it began. It began with the Senate Intel Committee, which is the right committee for it to begin. And it began with Marco Rubio, a man who had run for president, pretty prominent guy, co-chair of the Intel Committee, which really works as like a partnership. The chairman and the ranking member pretty much almost equal. A lot of respect there. They tend to get along in the Intel Committee. God bless them. And so Rubio puts together some significant legislation for to be passed in the 2021 NDA. That bill, the NDA that year, 2020, was part of the pandemic omnibus bill, COVID bill, whatever, don't care. Thing is that language was in there that set up the UAP task force and a number of other things, but mostly it just began. In other words, a major politician, ranking member of the Intel Committee, has taken the risk to put legislation into the NDA bill about this subject. And that just rang a bell all around the U.S. government. I can assure you, if they didn't know what's going on, they looked up from their desks and said, ooh, that's interesting. And fine, we got that legislation. And then there were more developments next year. Things were moving along. Unfortunately, one of the things moving along was the COVID virus. All right. And so the pace of things following that rather extraordinary thing of that legislation was pretty much diminished and slowed down. What can you do? But no problem, because in the next bill, right, the 2022 NDAA, more language appeared. And this was shepherded by a Democratic member of the Intel Committee, Kirsten Gillibrand, very significant woman who also ran for president. And she puts in some significant language in that bill. And of course, you can go online and find these bills. But one of the things I'm going to be doing very soon, could be even later tonight if I can stay awake, is I'm taking the language, all the UAP language in each of these bills, putting it into a PDF single space kind of standard format where you can read it real easy. And then I'm going to highlight in red the cool stuff. And I'll put that up so you can literally get it off the internet and look at it. And then as I continue to work with it and highlight, I'll just keep reloading it. So I'm going to do that pretty soon. So that bill went down. And then more things started happening. Throughout those 2 years, the briefing on the Hill continued. Not to mention the fact that the first bill and the second bill called for certain reports from the government. Certain time frame, X amount of months, you got to give us a report. And the government, and DOD rather did. I meant the DOD. The DOD did come through with those, public and classified. And so in that 2 years, the Congress is getting some classified reports from the DOD under the legislation, as well as talking to more witnesses, briefings, private, up on the Hill, and learning more and more. In other words, the Congress is going through a substantial learning curve. And by Congress, I don't mean every member of Congress, every committee, but the ones that are very relevant. The Intel committees, the Armed Services Committee, possibly Homeland Security, right? Armed Forces. But that's a lot of members. And then, the way Capitol Hill works is that you may be briefing this group over here, but they all kind of meet for lunch in the cafeterias in the basement, and stuff gets around. And it's a giant gossip mill up there. And so let me tell you, the Congress is filling up with information relevant and important with respect to the UAP issue. And it's passing legislation. It's exactly what we wanted. In the third year, right, things got interesting because Mark Warner stepped in. Now he's another Democrat. He's a Democrat like Gillibrand, but he's also the chairman of the committee. And he put some language out. Very substantial bill. And the thing that many people remember is that this language was particularly known for the fact that it included, amongst many other things, these are substantial bills, protection for witnesses, not necessarily whistleblowers per se, but protection for witnesses, that if you're providing information as per the legislation, as what we want to the entity that we're setting up in the DOD, which had 4 or 5 different names, and anybody gives you grief about it, that's against the law, and they're going to have a problem. That was significant that he did that, put that language in. But it got even better because there was a paragraph following that part that said something that absolutely stunned me, that it was in there at all. It was a paragraph that followed that if you are harassed in that way, and they're violating what we are describing as inappropriate behavior because you're doing what we ask you to do, you can sue them. You can sue your boss, right, for damages and punishment. And you could even sue the government. And I'm saying, I don't believe that. That's impossible because the government doesn't want you to sue them. They go to tremendous lengths to avoid that. Well, guess what? When the reconciliation took place and the bill was combined with the House and it finally got signed by the president, that paragraph was taken out. And people say, well, you see, right? It's a game. They're playing us like fools. No. There was no chance that paragraph was going to stay in. However, for many, many months, it sat up on the Senate website as pending legislation language for everybody in the world to read. Everybody in the Air Force and the Navy, everybody over the CIA, people working in underground facilities somewhere in the West, everybody who could get to the net could go up and read that bill. And believe me, plenty did. It's a pretty big deal. And they saw that paragraph and they said, whoa, if that were to pass, that's going to get a little dicey. It didn't pass, but the message was sent. And so we continue on. Now, during this time frame, because one of the things I do, even though it's driving me nuts, is to track all this in some logical way. And so I monitor the media extensively. And on my website, I have a print media archive, which if I could share it, I would, but it's now up to 15,000 articles. But in the last 5 years, since the gun went off on this final lap, I think I have logged in something like 4,000 articles, all about the UAP, ET, and disclosure process. And those 4,000 are triaged from probably 8,000 articles, which are just not important. They're fringe press. It's not that high end, maybe paranormal, whatever, just some website. No, only legitimate professional journalism. 4,000 articles. So all of that is happening, which is appropriate, right? Because it's letting the people in. It's telling them what's going on. It's part of the transparency. Meanwhile, documentaries are coming out like crazy. In the middle of this, Bad Robot, which is run by one of the biggest shots in all of Los Angeles and Hollywood, J.J. Abrams, decides to do a 4-part UFO series, right? There's projects been going on for a couple of years now all over Los Angeles in the film industry related to this issue. They're on board, and they're coming on board fast. And I'm just going to tease you right now because on November the 2nd, a very significant announcement is coming out of Hollywood that relates to exactly what I'm saying. And I'll be telling you a lot more about that in the in the near future. So all that's happening. And this is great. This is exactly what you want. And now these legislations are doing other things than just providing reports. One of the things that legislation had to do was to create a formal office in the Department of Defense to deal with the issue. They started out with the UAP task force, and then they went on to something else as they're trying to adapt to the legislation and what they're learning. They started with unidentified aerial phenomena, but then they learned that we all know about the unidentified submerged objects, USOs. And somebody pointed out to them, they can fly in space. And so they said, we got to change this. So they went to unidentified anomalous phenomena. That's fine. They were adjusting and adapting. It took a couple years, but they finally landed on the final project. The final program is called the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARROW, right? And that name perfectly reflects what is true and where we have to go. This issue is about phenomena that is in space, in the air, under the ocean, and frankly, it can even be under the ground. And there's more about the phenomena than just things flying around. And so that covers it all. And a lot of people, the ones that really just don't want to believe anything the government does, doesn't trust anything the government says or does, the last thing is resolution office. In other words, they're saying it's all about all domain anomalies, and we're going to resolve them. Okay? Now, what resolve means, we can discuss. but that is the name, and that is a non-trivial name. So that was set up. And then, of course, appropriately, they had some briefings on the Hill. This is what you do when you're creating some new major thing. And so the committees brought a couple of the people up, like Moultrie and Bray, and asked them, that wasn't a hearing, a briefing, and said, what's going on, guys? Andre Carson did something similar. Just checking in, briefings, whatever. This is what you expect. But every one of those is being seen by the public, which is to say that they are seeing the scaffolding being built. They're seeing the structure slowly being formed. Whether they like it or don't like it, whether they hate the government or don't hate it, the structure is being formed. And much more happens in this field. Sightings have skyrocketed. More journalism is pouring in. Articles in every major publication, every major magazine. And if you were to review those articles, the 4,000 I'm talking about, particularly the 1,500 this year, it'll probably get to 1,900 by the end of the year. It's the largest article, group ever done on the subject in any single year. What they will find out is two interesting things. One, we went to great lengths. We went to great lengths to try to inculcate the concept of UAP into the discussion to replace UFO. And we had to do that because UFO had been just destroyed, riddled, right? Covered with grease, bastardized, you name it, as part of the truth embargo. In other words, assign a name, something that is central to the whole damn thing. Just undermine the hell out of that name, and therefore you taint everything connected to it. It's so simple, so easy. And so if you're in the field, how do you go to a conference or write a book without saying UFO? That was the name. And the moment you say UFO, you're crazy. You're a tinfoil hat person. Yeah, you got a PhD, maybe you're an astronaut, but you said UFO. So it was totally corrupted by the government, not by us. And so if we wanted to build this infrastructure, if we wanted to get all of these players in, the Congress and this and that and everything else, UFO was a problem. And so we went with UAP, and we finally really got it going. We did. And Hillary Clinton, God bless her, was kind of the touchstone moment when she was on Jimmy Kimmel's show, and he brought up the issue to her as others had to her husband and John Podesta. And I actually have a lot of responsibility there. It's a long story, but let's just say that I was kind of behind the scenes. And the point is, and then her answer was, "Oh, Jimmy, there's a new term now. It's UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena." It was important because for the journalists and the politicians who are very skittish to get into this issue seriously, UFO was a problem, but UAP, no problem. And so on we go. Now, the point I'm trying to make is this. The legislation has nothing but UAP in it. I think UFO turns up once or twice, and it's mostly as a definition, right? That's what we mean. If you hear that, it was UAP, UAP, UAP. And it was unexplained aerial phenomena, then it became unexplained anomalous phenomena, whatever. But here's the cool thing. The stigma on this issue has collapsed so far. UFO came back. It came back. We vanquished this thing, right? And it came back, and now it's being used everywhere, and nobody cares.
One of the things I noticed too, which with all of the Chinese drones and everything that were coming through, is I think, in my opinion, Steve, is there's only 30 seconds, so we'll carry this over in the next hour that we have you. But to me, UFO still remains UFO. UAP, in the research that I've done and watched the stories come through, it seems to be UAP are man-made objects.
No.
Yes, 100%.
In other words, that's what all that UAP refers to?
They're trying to wrap it all together under one, but when they're talking UFO, like we've heard a lot of talk about UFO, like you said, I agree with you there, right? But when it comes to the entire subject, the UAP subject, we're dealing with man-made objects, UAP.
I'm happy to respond, but
well,
Dave,
let's do that when we return on Spaced Out Radio. Steve Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group here on Spaced Out Radio. Hour 2 is next. Good solid hour there, buddy.
let me just I can cue you a little bit. Throughout the whole early era, UFO was referring to both man-made and ET craft. It was very frequently stated that some UFOs are man-made, some UFOs could be ours. This was common language. All right, so it wasn't just ET. And when the UAP thing came in, it's pretty much the same thing. Some UAPs are ET, some are not. However, right, again, as part of people, focusing in on this and looking for triggers, anytime they referred to UAP as possibly man-made, they go, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. And so people are a little skewed. But I can say from reading several thousand articles, Dave, and these bills, that UAP is unidentified anomalous phenomena, which could mean human-made stuff that we don't know where the hell it's coming from, or it could mean extraterrestrial, obviously, right. But it's definitely anomalous. And they also make it kind of clear that all this stuff is not being put together. This massive effort is not being put together so they can keep track of those odd man-made objects. This is being put together to deal with the.
I see where you're going with that. I just got to go cool down here. Dirty Filth, I'm going to turn it over to you for a couple of minutes here. Unmute your mic. Show us what you got.
Where's this going, Phil?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Let me see. Got the sun. We got a case with some blood coming out of it.
I turn my crappy music down here 1 second.
No, I don't hear anything. And he has pulled something out of that box.
We've got 2 gray aliens.
Yeah.
And I'm just about to write the speech balloon here, but so the first guy's saying we're not taking shabby wooden boxes of cow parts on the ship. And the second alien says, I couldn't find a good game bag. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
Because, I mean,
I tell you, that's new material. I've never seen that tape. Not bad.
If you're gonna take slices of a cow, why don't you just take the whole thing?
Well, they could, but have you noticed that when they get done with a cow, they just leave it there, or sometimes they drop it from a height and let it just splat there? Have you ever wondered why they just don't take it out and drop it in the Pacific Ocean? Wouldn't be hard. Why do they leave the cow? Are they just trying to piss off the rancher?
That's what I wonder. I mean, could you not want to use that as a historical record of some sort? I'm not sure what kind of historians aliens have or anything, but I mean, can travel far distances. Maybe comprehensive guide over the corpses could be easily done if you took the whole thing as opposed to bits and pieces. But then again, I'm rambling. I apologize.
Well, it's okay. The answer to the question is, it's to let them know we're here. It's the same reason they put the crop circles down. It's just a little reminder that we're here. Now, in the case of the cow thing, it's part of their business, but what the hell? Double duty. We get the cow blood, which we need, and we're going to leave the cow there to just remind the human race again, we're here. All right? Otherwise, they would just drop it in the Pacific Ocean in order to avoid any, how would you say, any blame and shame. It's like, and what's the rancher going to do? Or is he going to blame it on aliens? No, the cow's gone. It was a rustler or something, right? So somebody came and stole one of his cows. He'll call up the sheriff, and the sheriff will look around, but they'll never find anything. They could do that all day long. They don't. They leave the animal behind. It's one of those little things that I kind of note that maybe others just don't note, but I take note of things like that.
It's one of those bits of evidence that if there's, you could say, aliens mutilated this cow, took this bit of blood through surgical precision, but then, where was the film? Where was your picture of this happening? Everybody always wants the smoking gun, but I mean,
there's no such thing.
Well, you can't really have that.
Yeah, it's virtually impossible. You could take any murder trial and say, what's a smoking gun? And there's almost nothing you can suggest that a good defense attorney can't knock down. It's just no such thing. It's the same thing really with even science. things are proven on the basis of a substantial amount of corroborative evidence. And it's the collective that wins the day. Same thing with the ET issue. There's never going to be a smoking gun. Well, let me put it this way. It would be so difficult. But clearly, if huge numbers of ships were to land in an area and ETs are moving out and all hell is breaking loose, yeah, that we're not alone. But nobody expected that, and it was never going to be and not part of the history of this. And so short of something that profound, you don't have a smoking gun. But the government was more than happy for us to look for one. Spend all the time you want trying to look for that smoking gun. Take a lifetime. No big deal. It's okay. We don't care. Just leave us alone. All right, that's not too bad. I can almost print that good.
I've really had to work on my printing.
Oh yeah, I can't write and I can't print. Cursive's gone and printing has even gone to shit. I have the patience for it.
We got 13 seconds. Big thank you to Louis ×2, Simon and Pam H for the super chats. Very much appreciated. Here comes hour number 2, everybody.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ignite. Ignite is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon by joining the SOR Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Stephen Bassett, Paradigm Research Group, is with us tonight. We very much appreciate Steve taking the time to give us an update on everything disclosure-wise right now. Steve, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, not everything. It's way too much. I can't follow it all. It's overwhelming. The amount of news articles, and then endless streams of podcast videos, YouTube videos. Everybody's interviewing everybody else, and some interesting information is coming out in all of these. Who can possibly have the time to follow that, right? And there's other areas as well. You just can't. So you're just kind of hanging on for the ride and trying to make a contribution. Now, to get back to where I was going, we're well around that track. The last lap gun went off in December 2017. We're well around the track, heading toward the finish line. So what comes next is the fourth tranche of legislation, which is now waiting to be reconciled. The Aero office is complete. It's had some funding. Also, what had to be done was briefings. A lot of witnesses have been briefed by the Intel committee staff as well as by Aero. That was important. So that's all done. Okay. And so we needed one more major piece of legislation to finish the scaffolding before the big show, the big event. And that is this year. Now, this gets really interesting, right? Because there were some surprises here that just spiced it up and just attracted even more attention, but at the same time put a lot of pressure on finishing this lap. It's kind of like that, that runner that's, back behind maybe 8th place, and suddenly as they're approaching, they start running real fast. Well, we're having to do that, and there's a reason for that. So essentially what happened was we're waiting on the Senate legislation for the 2024 NDA bill, which will be the fourth consecutive year of legislation on the UAP issue. And I don't want to beat this to death, but prior to that, there had never been a single sentence of legislation on this issue. And so people that are thinking, it's all the same. It's the same thing. I'm going, please, people, come on. So we're waiting on that. And then something odd happens. What we call a black swan event. Unexpected, but not surprising. And it was because, as I mentioned before, circumstances in the world, it's been a rather interesting 7 years, circumstances in the world have really slowed down the ability to get this done, because it's not the only thing on the menu, and the menu is filling up all the time, and it's been some really awful things happening, and it's delayed it. And because it's delayed it, it's opened it up to the unpredictable. In other words, you want to get it done, out the door, and home free. You don't want to leave any time for something odd to happen. Well, something did. And I'll be really short. Of the many people involved in this issue internally, and there are a lot, one of them was named David Grush, and he was working for the UAP task force. And his job was to get information and receive information, and that's exactly what happened. No problem. And then his job was to pass that on as appropriate with respect to the bills that were passed, which he did. No problem. Except that some people were thinking, we're not really crazy about this. And so let's kind of just drag our feet here. Don't go talk to them about that. Don't bring that up. Just kind of stay put. Well, that wasn't his job. In other words, they were harassing him, and they made him mad. He was a former intel officer, Air Force, a couple of tours in Iraq, and there's other people like him that I know about over these years. And these are not the kind of people that you try to intimidate. Wrong guys. All right. So he wasn't liking it, and so he took his complaints literally to the IG, Inspector General's office of the intelligence community. And his complaint was so righteous that the former and first IG of the intelligence community, a gentleman named McCullough, represented him. Okay, that's like taking a case before the Supreme Court, and the person representing you is a former Supreme Court justice, right? And so he got relief. They acknowledged it was a valid concern, and whoever was bothering him, by and large, back at home base, left him alone. Unfortunately, that's not enough, because if you want to harass somebody, you don't have to do it in your name. You don't have to do it in the open. There's 1,000 ways to drive people crazy completely anonymously. And so he kept getting harassed and threatened, including his family. Meanwhile, he had given the information to important people, I believe the Intel Committee. He also went to Arrow. And for reasons I'll explain later, Arrow had no interest in doing anything with that, because what he had to say was pretty intense. And that irritated him. And he finally made an historical and fateful decision. One of the most important decisions anybody in our government has ever made. He's up there. Guy's going to have some serious historical attention. He said, enough is enough. I'm going to be a whistleblower. I'm going to get some journalists. I'm going to give them the information that I have, that I gave to the Intel Committee and others. I'm even going to give an interview and put it all out there. And more importantly, I'm going to make the claim, which I believe he justly feels, he's not alone in that regard, that the whole process of hiding all this stuff and the programs they're doing is illegal in some form or fashion. And therefore, I'm a whistleblower. And he called himself that. And that makes him a whistleblower. There are plenty of witnesses out there that are not whistleblowers, that are being called whistleblowers. Don't do that. And so this whistleblower comes forward. Okay. What's he got? Anything interesting? Well, on June the 5th, when I woke up that morning, the debrief article written by Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal was already out, and people had read it, and their hair was on fire. They were running around, crazy. Steve, have you heard? And finally, I found that up in the article. I said, oh, wow. And then we learned that he was going to do his interview that same day. And so hundreds of us that were left the last day of the Contact in the Desert conference last June, last day was June the 5th, we all gathered in this room and watched together. All of us are in this bit, all in the UAP business, all the people that came to the conference were still there. So it's like a nice family group. And we watched him being interviewed by Ross Coulthard, one of my absolute favorite journalists. in which he said everything that was in the article. And what did he say? Multiple people inside USAPs and supported by other individuals that I conferred with have made it quite clear that we have multiple non-human vehicles in our facilities that we have been studying and re-engineering. And we also have the pilots, the dead bodies of the pilots of those craft. And that was not supposed to happen. The thing was moving along quite nicely, but it was moving along too slow. And so the Senate and the House and the White House and everybody else was not ready to have that dropped in to the picture, but there it was. Whoa. So that's June 5. All right. And so what happens next takes 39 days. Tons of articles, right? Go read them on my website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, print media archive. Articles are pouring forth about David Grush. Of course they are. And so what are you going to do? I mean, if you're the Intel Committee, you didn't want this out. That was supposed to come out in hearings before the Intel Committee under oath, not as a whistleblower report to Ross Coulthart. Nothing against Ross. This just wasn't in the plan. Hey, it's messy, and they've taken too long. And so after 39 days, something very dramatic happens. Most people, I don't know how many people know this, but if they don't know it, pay attention, folks, because this is really big. Out of nowhere, Chuck Schumer, who's not a formal member of the Intel Committee, though as the Senate majority leader, maybe he has a right to sit on it anytime he wants to, or any other committee, as far as I know, in the Senate, but whatever. He's not one of the regular members. He publicly comes out as the Senate majority leader and says, I am putting some language into this next legislation, this NDAA. Oh, all right, Chuck, great. What do you got? Well, what he had was this. He put and did put language, which in so many words, and I can get into the bill if we have time, that effective when this bill is passed, everyone should know, again, I'm paraphrasing it because any non-human tech that any American or American company, whether they're in the U.S. or outside the U.S., they're American company or American citizen who happens to have some non-human technology or any non-human bodies, other intelligent bodies, it belongs to us. It belongs to the United States. Eminent domain. Period. Now, who is he targeting? He may be targeting somebody that actually got a piece of Roswell records and had in their basement for 70 some years. Maybe. He may be targeting somebody that, he could, most importantly, is he targeting the people that are working in the deepest USAP programs on this? You bet he is. Is he targeting all the government contractors like Lockheed Martin that we're pretty certain have been contracted to work on some of this tech? You bet he is. Is he targeting some Lockheed Martin scientists that kind of took a piece with him one day, took it home and said, look, I can work with this later, and I'm gonna build a startup company around that, and my whole family's going to live well? All of them. And he just didn't say that. It wasn't just, if you got it, understand, we own it. He then includes language that says 300 years, and the number of years doesn't, 300 days doesn't matter. And I'll tell you why in a bit. But 300 days from signing of this bill, we want you to report back to us through the proper channels everything you got. And so if you're Lockheed Martin and you've got 3 crash vehicles in one of your underground research facilities just working away, and maybe even have one of them working, you're supposed to make a report about that and send it through to the United States government. Now, a lot of people go, it won't happen. It's just a ruse. Oh, come on, folks. Really? So that message has now gone out, and that went out on July the 14th, everywhere. So remember that language I said it was in the earlier bill that didn't make it in, the language about you can sue the government if you're harassed over this issue? It didn't pass into the bill, but the message went out. So this has been up on the site now for months, and it'll remain up on the site until the bill's signed, until the bill's reconciled in mid-December. And so the message has gone out. Even if this doesn't make it into the bill, where I'm at is one of the most powerful men in the Congress, and one of the gang of 8. My thinking is that we own it. It's a domain, and we may revisit that in the future. This is unprecedented. This is just, in 1960, if you told somebody that was, writing books about UAPs, this is going to happen, they'd laughed at you. They thought you were nuts. All right. This has happened. And so that bill, when you read the whole thing, and it's 63 pages in legal format, and it's 26 single space pages in the PDF that I'm going to put up on my website afterwards. It is the last piece of the puzzle. It covers a lot of things. It has a legacy program in there that's dealing with all information related to this phenomena that's more than 25 years old. It's got a controlled disclosure plan that is basically a controlled way to show how the stuff that's in the secret programs and everything else can work its way forward and through and be checked over and then advance forward, with the intention that all of it eventually ends up in the National Archives. Okay, it's got that and more. And when you read the whole bill, and if you know pretty much the whole story, most of the story, what you know now is that the scaffolding has been built. It's done. They don't need to do anything else. In fact, this last bill also talks about some money for Arrow, which really hasn't had much money, right? So that's in there as well. Okay, so at the scaffolding's built, and now we're all set. What is supposed to happen next? The last piece, and that is the intel hearing, the Senate intel hearing, where we know the witnesses who are almost certainly going to turn up, right? And these witnesses will absolutely rock the world. Not that they're not known, not that they haven't turned up here and there, but they've simply been dismissed. The government won't acknowledge them, won't deal with them, and the Congress doesn't deal with them. But when they turn up in front of the most powerful committee in Congress and they take an oath, many of them are military, they've already taken an oath, and they tell their truth with hundreds of millions of people watching, that is a different matter altogether. And a perfectly, that this point was just recently reinforced, because I think it's Mark Ford has a show called Good Trouble.
Matt Ford.
I was, what was it?
Matt Ford.
Matt Ford, yes.
Yeah.
I was very pleased. He had a very long interview with David Shindeli, who was one of the nuclear weapons turnoff witnesses, right? That along with Bob Salas and others have been trying to get in front of the Congress for 25 years. All right. They were at my citizen hearing on disclosure, the mock congressional hearing. That's as close as they'd gotten. But he was interviewing Shindeli, who's still alive, thank God. A number of them have died. And Shindeli indicated that he had been interviewed by Arrow. And so, look, here are the kinds of witnesses that will appear in front of the Intel Committee when Mark Warner makes, I hope, the very soon decision that that hearing is going to happen. A number of SAC base officers that were present when Kraft came down and turned off all our missiles. Some of the security people that were up top that saw the craft, right? Who, most of which are still alive because they were much younger than the officers down below. David Grush. Some of the USAP people that conveyed that information to David Grush, which he was then attacked because it was secondhand. Secondhand. I'm not going to believe that. No, really? So they're going to bring in the firsthand witnesses. Okay. And more. They can have all the pilots they want. If they want, they could spend an entire day showing just gotten gun camera footage, the good stuff, the really clear stuff, 8, 9, 20, 30 minutes. They could show gun camera footage all friggin' day. Just put it up on the screen. Let the public around the world see. They have enough to blow this thing completely out of the water. And when they have done that, take about a week, they will have created a situation where finally, with minimal disruption, zero partisanship, without causing too much trouble for the White House, the president can come forward in the East Room of the White House and say, Friday night probably, I've been watching this testimony. I have been following these developments for some time. I've been talking to the appropriate people. And I think I can confirm to you we're not alone. There's non-human tech here. There's non-humans here. And you want to know a lot more about it. And I am your president, and I'm going to see that you learn a lot more about it. And when he says those words, we are at that moment in the post-capital D disclosure world. The biggest paradigm and shift in history will have taken place. And then here's the punchline. And the reason why all of this stuff is being done, and the reason why people are so, I don't know, confused and angry about it. When those words are spoken, everything that has been put together, Arrow, witness interviews, right, the legislation, legacy programs, disclosure plan, all of that stuff, not to mention the massive awareness of the public and the journalist, immediately becomes 100% in play. In other words, we will be perfectly ready to deal with a world that is going to come at all the governments. And every government has to do something like this, though we're ahead of the game and wants to know everything right away with a billion questions, but it's okay. We have legislation. We've got Arrow. We're ready to deal with it. Now, imagine if somehow the president, maybe because of a mass sighting or something, was forced against his own better judgment to come out suddenly and say, yes, we got ETs here on television. And none of this was done. No legislation, no briefings of the Congress, not that media coverage. None of this was done. All of this would have to then be put together in the post-disclosure chaos that would be ensuing. And that would not be a good idea. And so, to wrap up this little tirade, what people don't get is all of this you've been seeing put together, unfortunately, too slowly for 5 years now, 6 years, is not about finally figuring out what's going on because, oh my God, there's something going on up there. I think we need to do this and do that and find out what it is. They know what's going on. The number of people in our government, either because they're involved or simply know that there's an ET presence and we have technology, would probably fill up a football stadium, maybe 5 of them, right? But they don't speak about it because it's not appropriate or illegal and they want to keep their job. They know already. And so the reason they're putting it together is for after they confirm it to have it in place. But the problem that they face and the problem the public faces is this. In order to put it together, in order to get the journalists to cover it, in order to get the politicians to take those meetings and even put some legislation together and so forth, they had to couch it in terms that would be comfortable. In other words, they had to stay within the certain lines, like a runner trying to make a touchdown, running from one end zone to the other. And they can juke and jive and run and everything else, but if they step out of bounds 2 inches, the play is over. Ball's dead. And so they have to do it in a certain way. UFO was not helpful. UAP was helpful, right? What's the basis for doing it? Because we want to welcome the ETs, want to get all ready for them so we can hold them a big party? No, because there's a potential threat. Not a threat, but a potential threat, a legitimate national security matter. And if you're a politician and you're going to gauge the UAP issue and you're afraid of losing most of your voting support, it's nice to be able to come out and say, look, I'm looking at this because there is a legitimate national security issue here. And so we're going to look at it. Some people get a little careless and they talk about threat. It's mostly potential threat. All of that is to make it palatable to go forward. Does that mean that there's going to be a contactee caucus in the House at some time? No. Does that mean contactees are going to be brought in for a big interview? No. That is later. That is post-disclosure. And there's a whole lot of other aspects of this issue that'll be post-disclosure. And so as they work their way through this, being careful, people are tearing their hair out going, are you kidding me? You know damn well that's not true. You already know this. And that's where they get upset.
Steve Bassett, we got him for another 30 minutes from the Paradigm Research Group, updating us on disclosure. Who are the players now? That's what we're going to ask Steve next. Mighty SOR, as it's a disclosure night tonight. We'll continue after this. You're on fire tonight, buddy. On fire.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. This is a message. You see, I've been trying to get on some major news. I've been blocked a couple of times already. There's some people inside that don't like me. It's okay. Can't be like for everybody. But nobody, I don't know, I'm pretty, we can agree, nobody has appeared on any national news, including News Nation, and presented this message or this approach. Nobody. Am I right? Have you heard it from anyone else?
I would agree with you.
Yeah. And that's a mistake. If the people understood this, they would be less concerned. They would be less upset. They'd be more willing to praise, more willing to support what's going on. But because they see it as another ruse, another game, and they're being played again, punked, they're looking for every little thing they can find. They see the word controlled disclosure in the bill, and they go nuts, right? Oh my God, this is it. It's 1969. They're going to close it all down. We won't see disclosure until the 22nd century. What can I say? I'm trying to help. That's all I'm trying to do is help. Say, look, guys, you're winning. So just get some champagne in, get ready to party, get ready to tell the government and the president how much you love them. And then in the post-disclosure world, okay, start pressing to get as much information as they're willing to give you as soon as they're willing to give it. And you'll have the media on your side. You'll suddenly have the colleges and universities on your side. God bless them. They'll finally get into it. And if to the extent that the U.S. is kind of a little slow in one area, some other country will just dump it out, right? Because we're not the only country that has information about this. We're not the only country that knows there's an ET presence. And so the other country, if we want to drag our feet here, other countries will say, nah, we're going to put it out. And so it's going to be very difficult to prevent a pretty steady flow of information of extraordinary import coming into the public domain. And that's the post-disclosure world. And I'm sure the number of podcasts on UAPs will triple in a week, right? You'll have people bowing out and buying cameras and microphones like crazy and setting up podcasts in their kitchen, in their backyard, whatever the hell.
It's already happened.
And I'll do them all. You want to do a podcast from your swimming pool? No problem. Just get in the pool. Put me on. I'll talk for 2 hours.
No, what the hell? That's why we love you. Preparing for snow here.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a shame. A little light dusting, I hope. Nothing serious. You are so lucky to live in British Columbia. It's an incredible place. Absolutely incredible. Are you far from the water?
Oh, yeah. I'm way inland.
Oh, you're inland. Okay. I'm still nice, but that whole area along it's nice, really nice. But it's a great province.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta come back soon.
Yeah, I'll get up there. No, I'm looking to do the world tour. Once disclosure comes, I'm gonna tell people start booking me everywhere and charge a lot. We'll split it 50-50, and I'm just gonna tour and tour and tour. What else can I do, right? I'm gonna love it, right? Unless they bring me into the government, make me the Secretary of Extraterrestrial Affairs, in which case, well, I'll have to buckle down.
Yeah, you're gonna have to learn a few different languages. So,
no. You hire an interpreter online. You just hit Google Translate. Nah, I don't learn any language. I was terrible anyway. Tried to learn Spanish and Russian. Couldn't do it. Could not do it. And Spanish is actually easy. I couldn't do that. Then I actually tried Russian. Don't ask why. Don't ask why. That didn't go well. So.
Yeah, it's what's our temperature right now? Hold on. Let me find out. Right now, it's about what are we at? We're at about -1 degree Celsius. We're at about 31 degrees Fahrenheit.
Really? How far north of the U.S. border are you?
I am about, let's see, home to Abbotsford. About 4.5 hours from the U.S. border.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Interior, 4.5 hours up. That's about 180 miles, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I imagine there have been days in the past where you've had snow up to the windowsill, if not the rooftop.
I haven't seen that yet. But
Well, the Pacific mitigates it some, even inland.
All right. A big thank you to Simon and Pam and Simon and Louis times two for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support. Don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store at our website. We do not have ugly swag, people. Here we go.
Ugly swag. The name of a girlfriend from hell. Okay.
We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott, your host of this awesome show. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Final time tonight, Steve Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group. Steve, there's so much we have touched on regarding disclosure tonight, and the players are always changing.
Sure.
Who should we be watching now as this movement moves forward?
Look, let me just make it simple. There is one person, and I'm going to keep saying this until they send people to stop me. There is one person right now that literally stands on the threshold of history. This doesn't happen too often, but there have been a number of instances in the 20th century, and we kind of know who they are. And this one is maybe unexpected, but it is Senator Mark Warner. Everything is in place. The witnesses have been briefed. There are tons of them. Arrow has been set up. The press is all over the issue. The public has been completely enthralled and engaged in the issue, right? The Congress is well involved, and the legislation to deal with the issue is in place. All that is needed is this hearing, which will be the basis on which the president can appropriately come forward and confirm, not as something, oh, I'm the president and I want you to know this, or you need to know this, but rather I'm your president and I have eyes to see and ears to hear, and what I've seen and heard is what you've seen and heard. We are not alone. That is the absolute way it needs to happen, and that hearing will be the trick. It's so you need to watch Mark Warner. Anything he says. Now, it's possible that somehow Schumer will end up being the one that calls the hearing. I think he could do that, but it is all about the Senate. Everything else is now incidental to that. There's plenty happening, and people are popping up here and there. We had a hearing in the House. That was interesting. Grush got to testify under oath. All of that is fine, but that is mostly sideshow stuff, not sideshow stuff, but on the periphery. At the center is getting to disclosure. And to recast what I said earlier and to make it really simple, right? Because Arrow is under a lot of attack right now because it won't do this and it won't do that, and Kirkpatrick says this and doesn't say that, and everybody is suspicious and so forth. I get it. But you have to understand something. Arrow was not set up to find out what this phenomena is and tell you. They already know. And that's one of the reasons why they didn't really want to give it any money, because there's really not much for it to do. This is all kind of creating a Potemkin village, a structure, right, that isn't going to be used until later. So there's no need for funding, at least not a lot, but there's been some money. It was not set up for that. It was set up to be in place when the president tells you we're not alone. It's not Kirkpatrick's job, but to deal with the aftermath of disclosure. And he will be a very busy man. When you get that, you'll realize kind of why things are unfolding the way they are and why people don't say this or should say that and don't do it, or it's dragging its feet here, whatever. You'll understand better why that is and be more willing to go along with it and be appreciative and praise the people that are involved. They should be praising Kirkpatrick. This guy has not had an easy run here. I mean, he had to take over this program that isn't going to really go into effect, frankly, until after the president confirms ET presence. So he's just kind of sitting there waiting. He's just a target for everybody to dump on him, right? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? And when Grush came out ahead of the script, in a sense, it really caused a serious issue for them. No problem with David. Love him. He's a hero. He created a real problem. And Kirkpatrick, what did he do? He actually pushed back with a letter kind of attacking Grush. A mistake, but I understand. This is it. We need to get this done because nobody is going to benefit now from disclosure being put off. We need to get it done. And let me give you a couple of reasons for that. One, as I've been saying for 26 years, since I created the paradigm clock, the world is getting more dangerous all the time. We're playing with fire. We're dancing on the edge of the volcano. And one day we're going to fall in. And it just gets worse and worse in many respects. 2 days ago, Yemen fired cruise missiles at Israel. I didn't even know Yemen had cruise missiles.
Yeah, that one shocked
and so
me.
they fire two. Now, these are not rockets. These are cruise missiles. If those cruise missiles had gotten through and hit some Israeli cities, meaning they got through the Iron Dome, Israel would have declared war on Yemen. And guess who probably gave them, Yemen, those cruise missiles? Iran, in which case they would have declared war on Iran. And all holy hell would have broken out of the Middle East in addition to a war in Ukraine. And everybody, but no problem. No nukes will be involved. Grow up, people. We cannot continue down this road any longer. We are going to have a nuclear war amongst any other manner of awful things. And the last week has been really a pageantry of awful things. And I have said a million times, and many colleagues are saying the same thing. Many of them. Disclosure may be our only way out of this mess. If we don't change the subject, if we don't give people something to look forward to, if we don't open doors so that we can start looking at things in a different way and fixing things, we're dead. We're finished. It's Walking Dead, folks. We're all going to be living the rest of our lives. It's going to be an endless series of Walking Dead shows. That's one of the reasons. And then the other reason why Warner needs to act is this. We have an absolute nutso election coming up. It's probably going to cost $6 billion to elect 435 members of the House, 33 members of the Senate, a whole bunch of governors, and a president. It's going to cost a fortune. And it's going to be crazy, right? Partisan, awful, nasty, stinky. Now, we don't need more of that. I mean, my God, we've had enough of that. And it just means more people are going to go get some opioids and check out, right? Fentanyl, what does it go for? 15 cents a tablet or something? Most dangerous drug in all of history and the cheapest. Disclosure needs to happen before that campaign really gets underway. It has to happen before the primaries. And the reason that's important is that every single candidate, therefore, running for these offices, which are supposedly going to run our country, will know there's an extraterrestrial presence, will have an opportunity to read a bunch of those books behind me, right? There's a lot of them there, but they're only a fraction of all the books that have been written. They should start with Richard Dolan, of course, and look at the videos and everything else and just get up to speed, little learning curve here so they can talk intelligently and even express an opinion as to like how things should go in this new post-disclosure world. Elect me because. And so essentially the disclosure event and the post-disclosure world will be literally wrapped into this very important election and will only make it better. Because for one thing, it is an issue that anybody, even the most partisan people running for office, can actually talk about intelligently because it's completely nonpartisan. There's just no way to partisanize it. And so every one of the candidates will have an opportunity, if they're getting the urge to literally start blowing their mind or start babbling about something, they can just shift to this subject and say, well, my thoughts regarding, the non-human technology. I think possibly we need to consider getting that available. I'm concerned about who has perhaps the rights to it, et cetera, et cetera. People, oh, that's very intelligent. Thank you very much. Now, I'm making a joke here, but it ain't a joke. This election could be transformative, or it could be another absolute circus. And it'll be even worse because David Grush has hung a giant kind of orb over the whole election by confirming we have non-human tech. But until the president confirms it, it's just David Grush. Meanwhile, the press is covering all this. And so as these people are running for office, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And they don't know. Right? They say, well, I refer you to, I don't know, read the New York Times. They're going to be in a situation where they're being asked important questions about a subject that the government still hasn't confirmed. And they're busy people. They haven't had a chance to read those books back there. And so they're going to make fools of themselves. As the public's interest continues to grow, it will be a disaster. And Mark Warner can prevent it all. All he has to do is call the witnesses I know they've already briefed, bring them up, put them under oath, and let them tell their story. And that will take us to the confirmation event. I think I've covered it now. I'm good. What else would you like to know? Ask me anything.
Well, since we have 12 minutes to go here, I'll ask as much as I absolutely can here in the next few minutes. Outside of that, when are we going to see more whistleblowers come forward? Are we going to get more names? Are we going to get them more in the public, like David Grush, who handed a list of letters to the last congressional hearings to Tim Burchett and Anna Luna?
The answer is I hope we don't see any more whistleblowers, because being a whistleblower is a bad gig. You don't want to be one, okay? Particularly in these hyperbolic times. Witnesses, sure. And they are turning up here and there. And you find out about them on some interview on Twitter. It's on Twitter or something. But mostly the witnesses, there are witnesses coming forward, but mostly they're behind the scenes. They're coming forward to the structures that have been set up. Members on the Hill, era, whatever. In other words, the witnesses I would expect to come forward are not going to go to the New York Times. They're going to come up because it's all been set up for them to do that. These bills are all about making it safe and appropriate and providing the way for them to do that. And so I assure you, right up until we have those Senate hearings, new witnesses are turning up somewhere within the governmental infrastructure all the time. Just because they're not being interviewed on ABC or News Nation doesn't mean that's not happening. So would another whistleblower jump out and say, oh, yeah, I know something really important and the government's, it's all illegal and so forth? I'm not saying it can't happen. But to be honest with you, we just needed the one. We just needed one. He's a whistleblower. He believes it's illegal. He was an honorable man. He served his country. He went under oath, and he confirmed we have non-human tech in bodies, which confirms Roswell. And once you confirm Roswell, that means you've confirmed the government's known about it all along. We don't need 5 Grushes. That's it. One guy. That's enough. And so now it's time to move on quickly. And we don't. If somehow we have not had disclosure by the spring of next year, we may get another David Grush. And he may have something to say that will be even more confounding, more explosive. And again, that is not going to help. It's time for us to do the right thing. 76 years after Roswell took place.
Okay, so if it's not David Grush or if it's none of the whistleblowers, how much more do you feel David Grush has to shoulder on this subject?
He seems to be doing okay. He's not getting trashed. I mean, there was initial pushback. Somebody released his medical file that indicated that he had some serious PTSD. He came back from Iraq. Who didn't? And it was very stressful on him. And he was taking some drugs and so forth. And he was so, but he dealt with it. He went for help. He was so how would you say, actualized as a human being, that he was able to get through that, deal with that, get himself together, and get his security clearance back. Okay. There's a lot of people that have had issues like that and they sort of got themselves together. But just kind of getting it together so you can hang out with the family at Thanksgiving dinner and nobody looks at you funny is one thing. Getting it together where the United States Air Force or the U.S. government, the DoD, gives you your full security clearance back, that is a hell of an accomplishment. And so he's told his truth, and he's given an interview and been part of a doc by, I think, Jesse Michaels. He may write a book. I haven't heard any indications that he's having serious trouble. I don't know if he's getting work, but I think the overall sense I get is clearly the man is a hero and he's being treated as such. There's almost nobody now in government. Now, there's been a lot going on, admittedly, so who knows, but that is like this, I'm taking Grush down. This guy is a bad guy. It's not there. He has handled himself pretty well. He's done the right thing, and he is going to be an American hero. So I feel good about that. Hopefully that will not change.
Yeah. And where do you see Lou Elizondo playing out of all this? Do you see him coming back?
Oh, yeah.
Vengeance?
With a vengeance? No. Lou Elizondo has a defined role in history. He did some extraordinary things. He had a real rough time of it. He's not the only one, I assure you. But I fully expect that Lou Elizondo is not going to walk away from this issue, and he will almost certainly be busy in the post-disclosure world. Whether he be brought back to a government position, I don't know, but there'll be plenty of people that want to talk and hear and read about Louis Elizondo post-disclosure. And so I'm not too worried about him. And I kind of know that he has had a very rough time, but I feel like the worst is over. I think he is now kind of in a much better place. I heard him give an interview recently, and he seemed like a very different guy, a little more together, a little more happy and content with his situation. So I wish nothing but the best for Lou.
Yeah, I talked to him recently, and he's doing very well. He's very excited about the first few months of 2024. And as he told me, it's funny, Steve, because nobody in this field except Lou Elizondo calls me David. And he goes, David, watch out for 2024, man. He goes, I can't tell you what's going on, but just be prepared.
Well, what do people normally call you, Dave?
Dave.
He calls with the David. Well,
Yeah.
he is acknowledging your seniority, sir. You're clearly a man of age and substance. You've seen and done many things, and it's respect. It's respect for seniors. I totally understand. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I hear you there. We got
by the way, 2024, things have dragged out. We could have had disclosure earlier this year, but you know all that's happened.
Is it smart, though, Steve, to have the push for a disclosure movement in an election year?
Well, I told you, if we don't do it, the election year is going to be even more ridiculous than it's already planned to be. And again, the public is done with the lies and the BS and the silly statements and the political nonsense. There's a chance now to inject massive truth into this election. So as far as I'm concerned, it's the one thing that'll save this election from being a catastrophe. So my answer is it is very wise to do that. And I'll follow up with this. Things have dragged out and been pushed forward. So now, as I mentioned, the legislation is not going to be signed until December 21. Okay, fine. And then the holidays come. Got to celebrate the holidays. But this legislation, as I pointed out, is really the last piece of the structure. They have everything in place now to be able to go forward with hearings and wrap this up. And they need to do it before the election. So before the primaries get underway. And so early 2024, January, February is still time to do it and have the elections go well. And that is 2024. And that's what Lou's pointing to. And so I will have to go with Lou at this point. I do not think we could get disclosure or get those hearings prior to that bill. I think at this point, Warner might think, look, let's get the bill passed. All that's in place. And then Now, we don't need any more legislation. It will be more legislation, but we really don't need any more for what we have to do. And so let's say 2024, early in the year, earlier the better. If he wants to do it sooner, I'm not going to gripe. Let me tell you, if he wants to get it done, get it done. To me, it doesn't matter. Now, again, every time we're in a position to maybe get something going, something weird happens. So in this case, the House of Representatives had a complete nervous breakdown. Most of them are probably in rubber rooms right now. I don't know, but that's kind of unusual. It's another first, right? The first time planes were, flew into buildings. The first time we went without a Speaker of the House. I mean, it's the worst plague in 100 years. It's always something like that. It seems to get in our way to this historic moment. But as big as these things are, the confirmation of the extraterrestrial presence is bigger than all of them combined in terms of its implications and importance. And it's fundamentally positive. And boy, do we need some positive things right now.
Sure we do. 3 minutes to go here, Steve, before we have to say goodnight to you.
Promo time?
No. Well, yeah, you can get to what you're working on, where you think you're going. Sure.
Yeah, got a lot of promos. Okay.
Yeah,
First of all, I need Twitter followers, folks, at Steve Bassett or Paradigm Research Group. Look that up on Twitter. I need followers, lots of them. Please follow. And I'm not one of these guys that's got, 1 million followers and they follow 2 people. I'm following like 1,300 people in this field and in news organizations. We need followers. Okay. There is a major event coming up in a very short amount of time, and it's called the Stairways to the Stars Conference, and it's at the Luxor Hotel. It's in a pyramid. It's basically the Conscious Life Expo in a pyramid with even more speakers. It's huge. I'll be speaking. There's going to be a very important panel there. I think not Paul. Danny Sheen is on it. Richard Dolan's on it. A bunch of others. UFO Pab. Anyway, look, book your room now. They've still got some books left. Rooms left in the Luxor. They reserved almost 2,000. So Stairway to the Stars, Luxor, Vegas, November 10 to November 12. Also, I'm going to be going to Mexico City for the Ufology World Conference, December 1 to 3. This could be a very significant event. First of all, it's in Mexico City. It has 25 million people. And it's in Mexico, which happens to have probably the highest awareness and interest per capita in the subject of any nation on the planet. I'm serious. The Mexicans are all over this issue. This could be a very significant conference. Okay. I will be speaking at the Conscious Life Expo, which is, I think, in late February next year. I am going to be presenting at the World Ufology Symposium in San Marino. I'll be presenting by Zoom, and that is November 4 to 6, and I will do a Zoom presentation in that. I'm going to be presenting at the Gauss Conference in Florence, Italy, again by Zoom on October 28. And oh boy, so many things. Also, there is a very important announcement that I'll be coming out with some other people on November the 2nd. It's pretty significant. It's going to be coming out of Hollywood, California. So I'll probably think of something else. But that's my promos for tonight.
Love it, man. Love it.
One more. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, shoot.
Richard Dolan, the hardest working man in the entire field. He's written 400 books. He's done documentaries. He's got 6 podcasts, whatever the hell. He's starting another little thing called Upgrade the Debate. And it is a lecture series, 3 people presenting over 2 hours. And I think he's got a series of them. I think mine is November 18, 19. It's that weekend, 18, 19. I'll be accompanied. Well, it'll be Richard Dolan, myself, and Chris Leto. So please check into that. I think the links are almost up, but this is going to be an ongoing series. And anytime Richard and I get together, it's fun. It's fun and games. It's great stuff. Okay, now I'm done. I'm good.
Steve Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio. Coming up, we have Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Then Little Timmy Senor will be here for the UFO Report. We bring it all to you In a jam-packed hour 3 next on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. All right, my man, we are clear. Appreciate you, Stevie.
I thought that was fun. I hope it was okay, Dave.
Oh, yeah. As
Yeah.
per always.
I'm pounding away at an issue. I tend to repeat myself a little bit, but I have to because, well, I'm trying to change the world one podcast at a time. What can I say?
Love it.
All right.
You take care, my man.
I'll
Take
be in
care.
touch. Bye.
Bye-bye. One of the good guys of the field, Steve Bassett. He is just a gem to our community. I'll be right back, everybody. Stay tuned. All right. Timmy. Timmy. How we all doing, people? We having a good time? Isn't a pumpkin a gourd anyways? Sweet Bobby Ounce, how you doing? Hey, Duck Fan, how you doing? Oh, what are you getting now, Les Paul Holland? Why do I think it's another Gretsch? Big thank you tonight to Andrew, Simon, Louis ×2, Pam H, and Simon for the super chats. Very much appreciate the love. Don't forget to mark May 10th through 12th, 2024 at the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort in Reno for the 3rd annual Spaced Out Radio fan party. I'm bringing in a bunch of fun guests that you hear on this show, and they're all going to be mingling with you guys. We got a live show, ghost hunt, party, and so much more going on. Here we go, everybody.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the 3rd and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, at KPNL. All of our archives are free. You can join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ignite. Ignite is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can listen to us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go again, everybody. It is time for Steve Stockton from Among the Missing with another creepy story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. Mitty Rivers, a 74-year-old experienced outdoorsman, went missing on November 12, 1945, while hunting near Long Trail Road and Vermont Route 9. He was on a weekend hunting trip with 4 other hunters in the mountains and was familiar with the local area. Mitty and his son-in-law, Joe Lazon, walked together before reaching a fork. Mitty planned to separate from Joe, telling him he'd only be gone for a short distance before he would join them at camp for lunch. As 3 p.m. passed and still no sign of Mitty, the rest of the hunting party started searching before contacting the authorities. They conducted an extensive search, but the only evidence they found was a single rifle cartridge in a stream. The speculation was that Mitty might have leaned over and the cartridge had fallen out of his pocket into the water. So what happened to Mitty Rivers? Unfortunately, Mitty's body was never found and the case remains unsolved. With so many years past, we can only hope that what happened to Mitty will someday be revealed. Next up, Mark A. Strittmater. Mark A. Strittmater, a 44-year-old hunter, went missing on October 19, 2019, while hunting alone in Medicine Bow National Forest, Wyoming. Before entering the forest, he was last seen at a convenience store in Saratoga, Wyoming. His last communication was a text message sent to his girlfriend, Kimberly Meese, at around 11 a.m. on that same day. When he failed to return from the hunt, search teams were deployed and his truck was found on Forest Road 801. Mark's disappearance became one of Wyoming's most prominent missing person cases. An early season snowstorm hindered search efforts, which continued for over a week with no success. Another 3-day search in 2020 yielded no results. In November of 2020, the Carbon County Sheriff's Office released a news statement stating that a hunter had discovered Mark's binoculars. This discovery initiated the third round of searching, which involved a canine unit. The report mentioned that the search also yielded other items that could have belonged to Mark, but no remains were found. Then, on October 16, 2022, a group of hunters discovered a firearm concealed beneath some vegetation. The hunters immediately notified a game warden, who then informed the Carbon County Sheriff's Office. This discovery led to a series of searches by Carbon County officials and volunteers from the University of Wyoming's Department of Anthropology and the Wyoming State Archaeologist's Office. This led to finding human remains and personal belongings in the area located south of Rawlins. A member of one of the search parties said that the remains were 325 yards from where his team conducted their initial search efforts. The sheriff's office said the remains were confirmed as Mark Strittmater's through an examination that included known dental records. So what happened to Mark Strittmater? Mark wore light clothing into the woods and was likely unprepared for the early season snowstorm. A plausible explanation is that he succumbed to the harsh weather conditions.
Thank you to Steve Stockton for another great story. If you want more, all you got to do is head on over to youtube.com/Among the Missing for his channel. Hit subscribe while you're there, and it'll be entertaining all night long for you. All right, from the missing to the mysterious, time to bring in little Timmy Senor, the UFO report.
Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know.
Little Timmy Senor, you know, I have something to tell you, my man. I have some sad news to tell you right off the bat here, buddy. I don't know if you're ready for it.
Oh.
Yeah. I've cut out the Tim Hortons breakfast. I have cut out my hash brown, my sausage and egg, or sausage and bacon farmer's wrap. Cut it out.
They're gonna go out of business. Oh,
They could go out of business.
Bummed. This is
They
big news.
It's big news.
Oh.
Well, there's a couple of things that I'm doing here for this, okay? Number one, I am now fasting after 8 o'clock. Okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to get my metabolism going again. All right. So, you know, old Davey's gained a little bit of weight. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I've gained a little bit of weight.
Okay.
No, I know. I'm still gorgeous. Trust me. I know I'm still gorgeous. Okay. But trying to get the metabolism going, get the system going again. Back to more water. And God, I'm sick and tired of drinking water. But it's got to be done. And back to eating breakfast at home. Now, I've cut down my ice cap from a large to a medium. I'm not giving that up because that's my one treat for the day. One treat. All right. But yeah. Yeah, I know.
That's big, though. This is big for you.
This is big news for me.
Yeah.
Big news.
I'm all about the fast, too. Anyone that is tight with me knows I fast. I'm all about it. I think it's great.
Yeah, but you're only like $1.28 wet.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I could give you half my body weight and you still wouldn't look chubby.
Right. Well, if I come up there, I'm going to have to wear you like a coat. So hopefully we don't get greenlit in the middle of winter. And I have to come out there and deal with your Jeep. This guy with the no roof Jeep, he's like totally cool with it, y'all. Shorts, t-shirt, Sub-Zero.
The top back on. The top's back on.
You've got snow coming, so you better get ready.
Yeah.
Is it out there? He's looking out the window. Yeah.
No, it's not snowing yet.
Not yet.
It could.
Any minute now.
It's clear out, clear sky out. So
UFO weather right before the storm.
total UFO weather. Total. But all right, enough about me. Let's talk about me some more. No,
Let's do
teasing.
it.
Man, what a week. What a week. Let's get right into the UFOs, man, because that's why we bring you on, and people don't want to hear my crap. They want to hear your good stuff here. So the Pentagon has upped its numbers on UFO reports. What's going on here, Tim?
That's right. And still none are a threat. And Stephen Bassett did a great job with his analysis there and covered potential threat of UAP and how he feels about it. But the number of UFO sightings analyzed by the Defense Department numbered more than 800 over the past 3 years of reporting, according to the data that was released in the report on Wednesday. From this, we can definitely dive in a little deeper here, Dave, because in the most recent report here, it documented cases that were obviously between 2022 in August all the way up to April 2023, and a total of 291 UAP sightings were analyzed, quote, using a rigorous scientific framework and data-driven approach. And so the Pentagon stated Wednesday, in total, the 3 annual reports from 2021 to 2023 comprise reviews of 801 sightings that date all the way back to 1996. So Aero Director Sean Kirkpatrick told lawmakers that there were no UAP sightings that had been determined to be of ET origin. And additionally, Kirkpatrick noted that there was never a perceived threat by any individual sighting. Now, while in this quote, he says, while the mere presence of UAP in the airspace represents a potential hazard to flight safety, none of these reports suggest the UAP maneuvered to an unsafe proximity to civil or military aircraft. So Aero's yearly report reads, although none of these UAP reports have been positively attributed to foreign activities, these cases continue to be investigated. Now, Dave, it's a little bit of mixed messages here, and I'd love to kind of get into this a little deeper. But we also know that there are some major takeaways that we can consider from the UAP report, and Christopher Mellon came up with 9 that he felt were important. Now, before I shift off topic, I like how Stephen Bassett kind of weeded this topic of the threat out, but I would love to just very briefly consider this question to you directly. Why would Aero admit to an array of different UAP that they have come across, different shapes and different forms, but they say there are no threat? How do they know there are no threat? Do you think that there's something that they're not telling us, that they're able to rule this out, or is this a general statement? What are your thoughts?
Well, first off, there's never been a threat. The threat was created by the To the Stars Academy, Tom DeLonge, okay, Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo for a little bit, about the threat narrative in order to get this into the media and in order to get this into the government hands where we could have these types of hearings and disclosure. You know, if Aero has done anything right and Sean Kirkpatrick has done anything right, the fact that they have not labeled anything as a threat is a positive move forward. That's what we need to be hearing. Okay, there are no threat narratives. The people who are talking threat want money, Tim. They want budgets. They want to be a part of the UFO game, and to do that you need government contracts. Government contracts don't come in tens of dollars. They come in millions of dollars. And one government contract, if you are, say, a retired fighter pilot trying to get a threat narrative group put together for the safety of pilots, you need millions. That's going to make you very, very rich. It would make me very, very rich if we were doing that. Okay. So the fact that that Arrow is coming out with the no threat narrative. I love it because it's true. Okay? There's never been a threat except for maybe you could consider a threat back at the nuclear weapons back in the 60s and 70s. Okay, when they were turning the nukes on and off. Yes, you could possibly put that as a threat. I take that as a look what we can do, guys. Don't play tough with us. Look what we can do.
Yeah. But consider that we know that threat, quote unquote threat from UFO and UAP is the fuel to the fire for disclosure up until this point. And that's admitted by every player pretty much publicly, right? Even if there isn't a visible threat, it's kind of implied. And like I said, it's the fuel to the fire. So if now the DOD and the Pentagon's report here is saying that there is no threat, is this an attempt to diffuse the topic?
I don't think it's an attempt to diffuse the topic. I think it's an attempt to put people in place. All right. Look, if you go on an ET side of things, look at this from the alien side. As Steven said, the alien subject is post-disclosure. It's not current disclosure, it's post-disclosure. I'm not really sure I agree with that, but let's go by his words on this nonetheless. Okay? We know that there are good ETs, we know that there are bad ETs out there. But in present form, in present terms, there has not been a threat towards the United States military or Federal Aviation Administration or anything regarding this account. The Canadian government and the Department of National Defense came out months ago, earlier this year, stating that there was zero threat from UAP incursions in Canadian airspace. All right. And that's where I think that it's an eye-opener. It's a strong comment. And I think that's a comment that will be taken seriously. Now, I don't agree with Bassett when it comes to his version of UAP versus UFO. Okay. I didn't really get a chance to debate him on that, but I would like to. Okay. Because I think that there is a potential threat from UAP, not from UFOs. UFOs approved it. UAP have not, if you consider UAP being man-made objects.
Interesting. Really interesting. And I think that it's important to take that into consideration. Now, not everyone may agree with us when we try to subcategorize that topic, but I think that you need to kind of at least make that separation at some point. Otherwise, again, they're going to take control of this topic and this narrative. We have to make sure that the people with the real knowledge and understanding are the ones that inform everyone from this point up. Because, Dave, as you and I know, four-letter agencies are in our audience and they're doing research.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody's doing the research. Everybody wants to know. But until the United States government comes clean, okay, on what they know and what is defined as a UFO and what is defined as a UAP, okay? Now, this is all my opinion, okay? And I know that if I can convince you, Tim Senor, that there is a difference between UAP and UFO, because you were Mr. UAP. You loved the UAP. Okay? Like you were literally getting UAP tattooed all over your body, like Tekashi 6ix9ine. Okay? You were Tim UAP. Right? The point that I'm making as I try and be funny here, okay, is over time, as you and I have analyzed all of these stories that have come across the wire, and we have dug deep and we have talked to experts and we have talked to people in the know regarding this subject. Okay. The one thing that we have learned is that there is a big, big issue with the definition of what's flying in the sky. We learned in February that our skies are actually not safe from drones, balloons, and from countries that want to spy on us. That got ugly there for a little bit. It's funny. Nobody was using the term UFO during that. They were using UAP incursions. Okay. And as we move forward towards more UFO topic, the generals, the people in power started defining UFOs as UFOs, not as UAP. The only people who are using the UAP term are the politicians and those who are jockeying for position and those who are, trying to, shall we say,
Cash in.
Cash in. Thank you. Thank you for bailing me out on that one.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely 100% correct in that analysis. Now, Christopher Mellon had some pretty interesting takeaways. He got some more out of it than I think you and I may have, but it's pretty interesting insight. Now, I know we have about 5 minutes before break, but I'm going to try and squeeze some of it in before we do. So the 9 primary takeaways from the most recent report, in Christopher Mellon's opinion, number 1 being the report states that none of the 291 cases considered were, quote, positively attributable to foreign adversaries. And so this is rather stunning. One cannot help but wonder why, about the numerous Navy cases involving brightly lit aerial objects that have been followed by U.S. Navy ships off the coast of California. And although those incidents were from an earlier time period, he believes that they have continued. And he also believes that there is an explanation that has been found for these perplexing cases, but this is consistent lack of evidence connecting any UAP cases to foreign nations, strengthening the ET hypothesis for the small number of unsolved cases involving extreme velocities and or morphologies. So positively, attributable to foreign adversaries, I think that's an important number 1. Do you have an opinion there? Shall I continue?
Continue for now, if you don't mind.
The report mentions 274 new reports in the last 8 months, suggesting a rate of over 30 reports per month, 1 per day, or almost, roughly 1 per day, 360 plus reports per year. Pretty interesting. I don't know if that's slow or fast progress or how many people are manning that desk. So the reference to a, quote, strong built shifting collection bias as number 3 in restricted military airspace is not surprising, given the greater presence of monitoring sensors in those areas. So this leaves unanswered the question as to whether U.S. training areas are being targeted and are areas of especially high activity. This claim also seems a bit odd, since the UAP, quote, hotspots map shows a very high level of activity in the Middle East and the Sea of Japan and along the Chinese coast. So interesting number 3 there, the collection bias. So number 4 is there's no new near mid-air collisions. No near mid-air collisions reported. So that's a change from an 11 previous near mid-air collisions from 2004 to 2021. So there were close calls. Some progress, as number 5, was noted in, quote, sensor placement and calibration. So they're getting better at collecting data. And they're saying that in employing more sensors specifically tailored for UAP detection, this is a highly encouraging move to the extent that the change is meaningful and extensive. Number 6 is a high percentage of cases lack sufficient data to identify or resolve. And Dave, you and I brought this up ourselves, that if they don't have the information, how can they possibly consider it UAP or mundane or anything? And so that's a very, very good point here that he's bringing up as his number 6.
Hey, hold on right there. Tim Senor in the UFO report. Continue right after our final break of the night here on Spaced Out Radio. What do you think? UAPs, man-made, space objects, combination of both? We'll return right after this on Spaced Out Radio.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say this to the Tom DeLonge debate in our chat room.
Ooh.
Okay. Yes, I believe anything that comes out of Tom DeLonge's mouth should be vetted with a toothbrush and soap first.
Oh, and definitely save your money on Monsters of California. 2 thumbs down, unfortunately. His directing debut was just, I don't know. You would hate it, Dave. You would hate it. Can I tell you one scene that you would specifically hate?
Please do.
So the kids are camping in the woods looking for Bigfoot. And he comes into their camp, and the hero of the movie unzips his tent and then he rolls out of his tent as if he was coming out from underneath a car, like looking up at the stars, just like rolls out of the tent into a stream of Bigfoot urine as the Bigfoot is literally urinating in his mouth.
Oh, God, I knew it was going to be something like that.
It's so just dumb.
Oh, my God. Oh.
Yeah, it was like, it's one of those moments where you're just like, you lost me and I think I'm done.
Oh, you're going to make me choke again.
Sorry to spoiler. That's not, I'm sure, a highlight or anything, but
it doesn't seem to amaze me.
I mean, he has a sense of humor as a director, but that shouldn't have made it to the final cut, in my opinion.
Oh my gosh.
And I love Tom DeLonge. I'm not. It was just, this was.
Look, I love Tom DeLonge too. I would go see Blink 182. Okay.
Yeah,
I totally would.
Mhm.
I'm still a big fan of their music.
But the movie,
But his role in ufology is not correct. It's been bullshit since the beginning.
Well, who is he talking to? You know, we know some of those names, and some are pretty eccentric, right? I mean, not to pick anyone out in particular, but some of that stuff is pretty out there. I mean, even you would consider it out there, and you're the king of the Wu train.
Dude.
So, yeah.
I'm going to say this, okay? I wrote an article after I wrote a blog about the failure of the To the Stars Academy after Elizondo, Mellon, and Justice left.
Of course you did.
Called 14 Reasons Why I Never Supported the TTSA. Well, this article happened to land in the hands of Jim Semivan, who through Melinda Leslie told me that even though at that point I had never talked to anybody at the TTSA ever, that my article was 95% correct. There were a couple of things that were a little off, okay? But my article that I wrote, just by reading between the lines of the BS that they were pulling, was 95% correct.
Love that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Melinda Leslie is actually somebody you're going to have to talk to about UFO and UAP being a subcategory there.
Well,
I brought it up, and I don't think either she didn't get what I meant, or she's just like, nope.
The problem is people like Melinda, people like Bassett and Richard Dolan, they love the trend. Well, they know a lot of people, they know a lot in the discussion, but in order to stay relevant, they use these trendy terms. Okay. they use these trendy terms like UAP in order to boost themselves up on the knowledge level, on the knowledge specter.
They're speaking the
Okay.
language.
They're speaking the language that
Yeah.
current group wants to hear. What we're trying to do, Tim, with this segment and others, is we're trying to educate people that there is a difference. How many times have you been told and I've been told by people that we are correct? We are correct. Even though we're in the extreme minority, we are correct. Okay?
Yeah.
By people in the know. So here we go. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate being the captain of the Woo Train for you. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us in the Space Travelers Club on Patreon. Here's our good friend Tim Senor, the resident Timbit, hanging out with us with the UFO report. And Tim, you were going over some stipulations right beforehand on the whole threat narrative, the UAP aspect, and everything.
Yeah. And I was bringing up the takeaways and the questions regarding the October 2023 Aero DNI UAP report from the perspective of Christopher Mellon. And I just covered point number 6 that he brought up of the 9 he brought forward. And his number 6 was a high percentage of cases lack sufficient data to identify or resolve. And I found that same frustration, I think, that he's expressing here, that even in this report, they're not really willing to say this is legitimately a UFO. They'll just be like, there's not enough data on this 200 and something cases, right? And they'll just move on and glance over the fact that they just don't have enough information. So that, yeah. Anyways, number 7, only 1 maritime case and no UAP space cases were reported, although the report notes improving coordination with the Space Command. Now, you and I know that this point was made up in the report, but of course, they're not sourcing anything from there yet. They haven't coordinated with Space Command all the way. There's nobody really collaborating there. And as far as collecting a maritime case, well, the Navy's already given everything up and their files are sealed according to them. So number 8 on Christopher Mellon's list is there's no mention of the stunning earlier reporting from the Senate hearing with Aero witnesses indicating that some UAP emit radio signals in the 1 to 3 and 8 to 12 gigahertz band, nor was there a mention again of UAP intermittently emitting radar signals in the X band, which is around 7.0 to 11.2 gigahertz. So, yeah, they're not releasing data that they have. That's frustrating. And then finally, number 9, Aero succeeded in getting its public website established. Now, anyone that's visited that website, it's there.
It's there.
It's there.
Good analysis.
It's there. But according to Aero, they want to start collecting historical data and witness reports from the public. That's going to inundate that website, and I hope that they're ready with massive servers.
That's if people attend it. If
Right?
people attend it.
Right. You know, Christopher Mellon gives a pretty solid summary here. He says, overall, there seems to be steady progress in instituting UAP collection and reporting procedures. There also appears to be progress in adjusting sensors to better collect UAP data and in developing dedicated UAP sensors. Dr. Kirkpatrick seems to have instituted a disciplined process for collecting and evaluating UAP reports. But there are many questions that still remain. Now, we don't necessarily have to get into Christopher's questions here because he does get specific and he's shot quite a few holes in this report. But I think that his positive and neutral points here that he's made were pretty on point. Of course, we're not too excited about this website, and we don't necessarily know if they're going to be transparent with any of the information that's collected there. So how effectively is Arrow able to even obsess and access compartmented UAP data from different organizations such as CIA and NORAD? Like, there are a lot of pertinent questions that need to get established and addressed. But Dave, what's your kind of general take so far?
Oh, that's a heavy question. Heavy question. I think there's still too much confusion. I really do. I mean, do they even know what they're looking for? Do they know specifically what they are going after? I mean, that's the question. And we got to remember, Tim, the information that they are giving to us is such a fraction of a morsel of cheese, if I can use cheese as the word there, okay, that we are trying to make mountains out of it. We are trying to make some sort of consensual mountain of information that everybody can rely on, and we're not there. They can't even tell a UAP from a UFO. At least that's what they have us thinking.
Right. And NASA can't even get straight on what UAP is, right? And I won't get you started on NASA, but my point is that everything that we've seen in this push for quote unquote transparency on this topic, the learning curve is very much in the beginning stages. And who knows how long they're going to continue to fund this, how long the interest will be up, how long Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick will be in that role. And we're also learning that he had a quote secret committee that was advising him. Well, if this committee exists, they need to be doing a better job in advisory role, or maybe they're doing a great job and it, just gets filtered at Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. It gets filtered. Remember, they don't want this topic out. Okay. Can I give you my conspiracy theory here for a quick second?
Please.
Okay. I'm going to give it to you. I think that while all of these morsels of cheese are being dropped on us, behind the scenes, there are lawyers, there are lawmakers, there are historians, and a lot of people within the alphabet agencies gathering together who are trying to figure out a way to get out of this story clean. There's a lot of dirt around this story. I mean, how does and I'm just going to throw a quick cheap shot at NASA here, but how does NASA get away with saying they haven't found anything when their own bloody astronauts have gone on record with it? Okay.
Yeah.
Where's their info? But that's part of the cover up of mucking up this story. So that way, when it does come out, there are no lawsuits. They can play dumb regarding this subject. We just didn't know. We just didn't know. Doesn't it seem like that's the way it's being set up to be? I mean, you look at Arrow, okay, you look at their website, says nothing about UFOs, nothing. All right. What are they there for then? Everybody is talking UFOs, but we're hiding behind the UAP stigma. We're hiding behind defense. We're hiding behind a threat narrative, which Arrow has now countered. Thank goodness. I think what they're doing behind the scenes is they're trying to lessen the impact of what any sort of confirmation will be. We're not in a disclosure movement. I disagree with Steve Bassett on that 100%. We are not in a disclosure movement. The word disclosure is defined as telling everything, not hiding secrets. There are no yeah buts in a disclosure. That's why we are in a confirmation, because as long as we are in a confirmation movement, they can hide whatever they want. That's my conspiracy theory, Tim.
I think it's solid. I don't know how conspiratorial it is. I see a lot of facts in there. I really do. I mean, in my next story, it's pretty pertinent. The headline coming from Vice is, "Why do UFO sightings keep happening near nuclear sites?" And we know that Robert Salas has for decades been talking about this and has had a few chances, in fact, to speak to Congress directly. But from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant after a disaster to a US missile base, UFOs have a concerning affinity for nuclear-based sites. And so we definitely have to also even consider that some of this information, even though it's sensitive, may be at a level that will never make it to the public, because once you say nuclear, well, now we know that it's got a whole new classification that we may never hear about. And so obviously back on March 11th of 2011, Fukushima nuclear plant was the site of one of the worst nuclear disasters ever, after an earthquake and subsequent tsunami caused an electrical grid to fail. And so UFOs came after the explosion that took place there, and there were so many of them that, in a quote from a witness there, a monk who actually encountered those lights over Fukushima, he says the UFOs came after the explosion, and there were just so many of them that I was shocked. And you can actually catch some of this on the new series Encounters on Netflix, coming from Spielberg. But we also have to consider that it goes back to the 1930s, when the science and research was being done to understand fission. That was kind of around the same time that attention came to us from UFOs. Another well-known case took place at the Maelstrom Air Force Base in Montana, and Robert Salas was one of those people that worked at the missile launch there and actually reported 10 nuclear-tipped missiles at the time. Allegedly, one after another became unlaunchable. And he later learned that it potentially was circumstances surrounding the UFOs that had been in that area. Now, more recently, we know that another person has come forward and been talking about his experiences with nuclear incursions with UFOs. Minuteman ICBM nuclear launch control officer David Schindel reveals his experience with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick in his attempt to reveal his situation with this experience. And he goes in depth on the Good Trouble show, in fact, and explains how when he attempted to be a witness, not even whistleblower, a witness to this event, not only did they do it in a non-confidential way over public phone lines, but whoever was doing the interviews, potentially Sean Kirkpatrick himself, they were only interested in the fact that the missiles went down, not interested in any of the lights that were seen days before, days of, and days after, weren't interested in any of the actual UAP events, only interested in the fact that the missiles went down and how. So seems like potentially the interviewers are missing the point. We know that in this case, at least, David Schindel reported that he felt that the interview was insufficient and that his case really wasn't handled fairly. And they missed the entire point of his reported sighting. So, Dave, why don't you jump in here and kind of give your take on the fact that we know there's interest of nuclear sites by UFOs? Why is it such a sensitive topic, and why is our government really not wanting to talk about it? Is it because it's radioactive?
Well, you know what? The same thing happened up here, where Member of Parliament Larry Maguire pretty much got shot down after requesting a report on UFO sightings over nuclear facilities in Eastern Canada. And I found that very interesting as well. Look, here's the big question. Over the last number of years, we have seen an influx of UFO activity or UAP activity over nuclear facilities. They seem to have an interest in war zones. They seem to have an interest in nuclear issues, whether it's Fukushima, whether it's the nuclear power plants in Canada or the US or anywhere in the world. The question is why? So, if you break it on down from a human level, why would somebody want interest in a nuclear facility? Number of reasons. What's the security like? How is it built? What are they running on? How many vehicles are there? How many personnel are there? Okay, how big is it? How many acres do they have blocked off for this facility? What's security like? Are they armed? Do they have helicopters patrolling? Where does the energy go? What's inside the buildings? Drones can find out very easily. Okay. And drones can also assess damage on meltdowns like Fukushima. Now, if you go back to Chernobyl or before, as far as we know, there wasn't any drones out there that could do that job. Could that be UFO? Who knows? But if we take the idea, okay, and take our good a note from our good friend Random Guy, who stated, excuse me, even in the Israeli-Gaza conflict, he said within 5 days there's going to be UFO reports in Israel. Watch. Remember that text? Did you get that text?
I
Okay.
do. I remember him
Okay.
saying that.
4 days later, what is there being cited? Not
Sure
5
enough.
days, 4 days. Okay. So I think a lot of these are spies. Why not?
UFO spies?
If you're no, but if you're Iran or
Oh,
you're North Korea and you are wanting to try and gain nuclear access to become a nuclear power, don't you want to see what the other guys are doing? How they're running the facilities? It isn't just about weapons, it's about energy too. Right? Nuclear energy is, for as dirty as it is still one of the best energy supplies on this planet. We don't have
really?
any here on the Canadian West Coast, but around Ontario there is nuclear power plants. I've seen the nuclear power plants in a number of different states in the US, from Pennsylvania to Washington, California, and so on. So the question is, who is it? Is it ours? Is it alien? I mean, I don't see any UFOs flying over or hearing reports over coal mines. I'm sure there is. I know that there's been UFOs spotted over the mines here where I live in my area. There's one mine that's closed down around here called Canham Hendricks Mine. And for years, when they would shut down the mine for the weekends, that's when the green lights would appear.
There you go.
Okay. So the question is, if we're not over if it's not UFOs over battlefields, over nuclear facilities, watching what's happening, how do we know what's really going on? How do we know it's alien? Okay, because remember, UFOs have to come from somewhere if they're not coming from here, which, like David Grush said, we have the pilots. So that's my thought. We got 2 minutes to go. What's yours? Counter.
Well, honestly, they can't all be drones, in my opinion, and only because they've been seen historically for so long. And even back in the 1930s, when they were discovering fission in this report, or, they're talking about specific lights in the skies over these areas where they were practicing these new inventions. So there's definitely an attraction. I think the further along we get in science, the more potentially they would be attracted to that. And it only takes one of these cases in history for it to be interesting. And honestly, for the first-hand witnesses to come forward, they definitely came in contact with something. For David Schindel to say what he said in his witness account, for Robert Salas to go through what he went through, these people experienced something and they felt it was otherworldly, and they felt that the world needed to know. They put their whole lives on hold for this because they felt that it was massive and they'd been silenced. Our government doesn't want the public to know, let alone our government. So my opinion is there's a massive secret. I don't know, maybe they're hiding that our adversaries can come close to our military bases. I don't think so. Not all of them. I don't think so. I think that these witnesses are talking about otherworldly events, in my opinion.
Well, and they could be. Question is, what are they? Where are they coming from? We don't know as of yet, Mr. Timmy Senor. We appreciate the great UFO report, my man, and keep up the great work that you are doing, because you just make it all the better, Tim. You do.
This guy. Well, it's tons of fun, and thanks for listening to me. Thanks for staying up later, everyone. Enjoy the report, and I'll see you all very, very soon.
Absolutely. Tim Senor, and another great UFO report. And big thank you to Steve Bassett for breaking all the latest news down in the UFO story as we get ready for Disclosure 2024. Do you buy it? I don't. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter or X at #SpacedOutRadio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. That's a good show. That's a good show. Appreciate that one. We got to appreciate that one. Oh, finally, those can come off. Give me 2 seconds here. All right. Canna Chef Chris, how you doing? Paula Faust, how are you? The Doug Shelby. Questions for old Davy Boy here while we're editing. Anything? Anything, people? Who'd you pick to win the NBA title this year? I don't follow basketball. Ever since the Vancouver Grizzlies got screwed over by the NBA, in which Commissioner David Stern finally admitted when he retired it was his worst move ever, I have refused to watch the NBA. And I'm saying that not as a hater of the NBA. Okay, I used to cover the NBA. But the way the NBA screwed over the Vancouver Grizzlies and the city of Vancouver, it's a real shame because it's Vancouver's a total basketball market. Total basketball market. RG and I talk all the time. How does San Fran lose to Minnesota tonight? I'm not ready to give up on Brock Purdy just yet. The kid's a stud. Peter Panda, how you doing? Oh, Rob G. Just so you know, I forgot to tell you earlier when we talked. My tour got canceled for tomorrow, so I can do the show. Not a problem. If you want to join me, you're more than welcome. We can do it together if you want. I think we're gonna see. Good question, Simon. I think we're gonna see maybe more people come forward that are in the know. I don't expect more videos. I don't expect more evidence. Wouldn't surprise me if he comes out and does run for government. Whether or not he wants that type of publicity, I don't know. Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association is back on Spaced Out Radio tomorrow night. Because believe it or not, there's people out there who got aliens. Right, random guy? All right. I will see all of you tomorrow. And a big thank you tonight to Neil, Louis times 3, CS, Android, Simon, and Pam H for the great super chats. Remember, you can shop at our website, get your Spaced Out Radio swag as we speak. Excuse me. And a big thank you to everyone who gives us a thumbs up and who hit subscribe tonight. Very much appreciated. And don't forget, May 10th through 12th, put it on your calendar for 2024. We want to make sure that all of you are there for our annual Spaced Out Radio fan party. And we go from there. It's in Reno, Nevada, at the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort. I can't speak anymore. We'll see you tomorrow.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.